Chapter 447. Having successfully broken through, Grandpa June was very excited. After talking for a long time, he noticed that his grandson was covering his nose and stammering. He had a rather uncomfortable and sullen look on his face. His eyes were constantly sizing up his body. Grandpa June could not help but feel suspicious. Could it be that my body is covered in dust? Is there a need to look at your grandfather like that? He subconsciously looked at his body, and found that he was covered in dust. It should be because there was no dust, but because his body was surrounded by stains. The loose robe on his body was sticking to his body, and the original white robe was now covered with a thick layer of unknown stains. The color of the stains could no longer be seen. At the same time, he felt that his body was wrinkled and uncomfortable. Grandpa June used to be a general, and didn't care about these things. But now, he was the Duke of Tianxiang, and had been living like a prince for many years. Moreover, in recent years, he had cultivated his mind and body, and had developed a bit of misophobia, especially in front of the younger generation. This time, he had made a fool of himself. Grandpa June couldn't help but cry out in alarm, and disappeared with a whoosh, leaving behind a sentence. This old man is going to wash up, and will be back soon. June Moxie laughed involuntarily. This situation was originally normal. The old man had successfully broken through the barrier of the peak of the sky profound realm, and he had even broken through several levels in one go. At the same time that his power had increased by a large margin, with the help and impact of the powerful external elixirs, it was as if he had undergone an extremely thorough cleansing of his meridians and marrow. All the impurities that had accumulated in his body over the past few decades were all expelled. Adding on to the old injuries that had accumulated for many years, all the future troubles were basically cleared away in one go. If there were no such impurities, Da Xiao would have suspected that there might be some flaws in his grandfather's breakthrough. After this, June Moxie was sure that with June Zhantian's current body, living to 200 years old or even more wouldn't be a problem. Moreover, his body's ability to protect itself had been greatly enhanced. If he were to use his current body to practice the wonderful martial arts in June Moxie's memory, he would even be able to fight against a supreme expert. June Moxie finally put down one of his worries. A sincere smile appeared on June Moxie's face. He was gratified and happy. In this world where the fist was the strongest, this was the only way to ensure the safety and happiness of the family. What is the purpose of a man's life? It was said that everyone would be destroyed if they didn't look out for themselves. However, at the end of the day, everyone lived for others. They lived for the people who cared about them, the people they cared about, and their loved ones. In his previous life, he was lonely and destitute. Saying that he was living for himself was actually a perfunctory way of saying that he had no other choice. Because he wanted to live for others, but there was no such person. He could only live with the little faith in his heart. Who is worthy of me, the evil monarch's sacrifice? Sacrifice for her. Whether it was robbing the rich to help the poor, punishing the wicked, or for their own country or their own people. In short, it was a belief that supported him. Although he was an assassin in his previous life, he fought for justice, for what he believed to be justice. Whether it was killing or torturing, the stubbornness in his heart never changed. Walk on the path of injustice and take care of all the injustice in the world. However, the more he did this, the more he went against the so-called righteous path. June Moxie, the evil monarch, was really lonely. That kind of powerlessness was not something an ordinary person could understand. However, in this life, he unexpectedly had a real family that belonged to him. When June Moxie recognized his new identity, he truly accepted this family. When June Zhantian washed the capital with blood because of him, June Moxie felt that he was completely surrounded by this strong familial love. At this point, the evil June Moxie's heart was no longer lonely. Because he finally had a spiritual support. Family, this was the people that June Moxie cared about the most in this life, and also the faith that he relied on for his whole life. If possible, Jun Mo Xia would do everything in his power to make his loved ones live a long and healthy life, and live a happy and peaceful life. He would never allow anyone to destroy this beautiful thing. Once a rootless vagabond obtained a family, no one would think that he would care so much. He would rather give everything and go against the world to protect it to the end. Because of the feeling of being rootless, too bitter. So bitter that life would become meaningless. But the feeling of caring was so warm that he would not hesitate to protect it with his life, wholeheartedly care for it, and do his best to protect it. From the recovery of Jun Wui's legs, the rise of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer, Grandpa Jun's advancement, Guan Qing Han's change, all of these were things that Jun Moxie had done for his family, step by step. And he must continue to do it. Until the shame of this family was completely washed away, until this family stood at the top of the world, and no one dared to look at them. Only the Jun family could truly look down on the world, and be looked up to by all. That was Jun Moxie's ultimate goal. Jun Mo Xia looked at the gloomy night sky, and finally let out a long sigh of relief. Then, he ordered the guards to withdraw, and everything returned to normal. Then, his body flashed, and disappeared from the bottom of the tower. Tonight, he still had something important to do. The deterrence during the day was not enough, far from enough. If he wanted to completely suppress this storm, he would need at least the heads of a few important figures. Now, some rotten scholars in Tianxiang dared to so brazenly attack the Jun family. They even dared to bully others. How could they threaten the world? A top family, a super family, if they did not retaliate, how could they establish themselves in the future? Wouldn't that be a joke? Jun Moxie's trip this time was to deal with these matters. Trying to use honor to attack me? Hee, let's see who cares more about honor. Calling me despicable and shameless, let's see who cares more about honor. Dark clouds covered the sky, and there were no stars and no moon. A moonless, windy night. Murder and arson. Young Master Jun Mo Xia didn't intend to set the place on fire. But, he wouldn't care if he killed someone if it was necessary. Moreover, what he wanted to do this time might be even more terrifying than killing someone or setting the place on fire. Mei Mansion, old Mei Gao Jia was sighing and groaning. The situation had unexpectedly developed to this point. Even old Mei hadn't anticipated that Jun Mo Xia, a famous debauchee, would be so unyielding. In fact, he was so unscrupulous. He had dared to disregard the emperor's authority in broad daylight. The only explanation was that he had the strength to defy all laws and the emperor's authority. Or, he had a powerful backer behind him. No matter which one it was, old Mei was not happy to see it. Old Mei had believed that Jun Moxie should be in fear and trepidation since he had committed such an evil act. Moreover, he should be facing the pressure of public opinion. So, he should tie himself up and go to the capital to beg for forgiveness. Then, he should wait for His Majesty to deal with him. Then, the officials would be furious, and the military would retaliate. Then, His Majesty would make the final decision. He would weaken the Jun family's influence in Tianxiang even if he didn't eradicate the Jun family. Jun Moxie, the main culprit, must die. Even though old Mei had some respect for Guan Qing Han, he couldn't tolerate her. Wouldn't it be the same as slapping his own mouth if he let Guan Qing Han off with such a scandal? Wouldn't it be telling the world that Jun Moxie was innocent? The adulterer and the adulterer would be punished together. After all, an empire was relying on such a powerful family. So, it wasn't a good thing for the officials to be strong and the emperor to be weak. So, it wasn't normal. And, a disaster was bound to happen as time went on. And, the Jun family's Jun Moxie was on the rise. So, this was a heaven-sent opportunity. So, this scandal was a good excuse that couldn't be covered even in 1,000 years. Mei Gao Jia believed that he had guessed the emperor's plan. Therefore, he had put on a tough stance. He had vowed to pull the Jun family off their high horse. His Majesty's backing was tantamount to having the entire Tianxiang Empire's backing. So, the Jun family was nothing to be afraid of even if they were strong. Moreover, the Jun family was on the rise. So, it was the best time to get rid of them. The opportunity was fleeting. So, it would be too late to regret it if it was missed. But, His Majesty's attitude was so ambiguous once the matter got out of hand. Could it be that the unshakable backing I had thought to be useless? Or, is there some other reason? And, Jun Moxie's arrogance has reached an appalling level. The matter had gotten out of hand. The three scholars had cursed their master on the street. And, their so-called scholarly demeanor had vanished without a trace. The world-famous Wenqing Heavenly Literature Institute has been embroiled in such a big scandal. This vicious scandal is even more unbearable than the scandal of Jun Moxie's sister-in-law. This is even more unbearable. I'm not afraid of unbearable goods. But, I'm afraid of comparing goods to goods. Old Mei felt that he had failed as a teacher in comparison to the Jun family's scandal. I've taught these unbearable disciples. The situation has been turned upside down in just one day. Mei Gao Jia was deeply worried. My old companion, Kong Ling Yang, must be feeling very angry, right? Lord Mei is in a good mood. The wind is heavy, and the moon is dark. Ghosts are crying everywhere. But, Lord Mei is proud and unyielding. He is facing the heavens alone. He. Who is standing in the middle of the night under the starry sky? A faint and clear voice was heard along with the wind. The voice was faintly discernible. It seemed to be brimming with a warm smile. However, the wind seemed to have stagnated as this voice sounded. And, the world was filled with an indescribable chill. Chapter 448. He had spoken these 3 words very slowly. He had paused between each word. But, he had spoken them in a very confident manner. It seemed as if he had anticipated this, and had prepared for it. He had anticipated that Jun Moxie was the only person who had arrived. Lord Mei is worthy of being called a wise man of this generation. Your foresight is divine, the faint voice behind him sounded like an old friend chatting. It was neither angry nor angry. It was full of patience. This old man is ashamed. How can I dare to live up to the name of a wise man? How can I foresee divine things? The young Master Jun has informed this old man. Therefore, this old man hasn't slept tonight. He has been waiting for this moment in order to welcome the young Master Jun's arrival. Mei Gao Jia finally turned around. His old face was calm. However, a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes as he looked at the youngster before him. Is this the same good-for-nothing debauchee that I have in my mind? In front of him, there was an elegant and handsome young man, dressed in a snow-white robe, standing leisurely, facing the boundless night sky, as if riding the wind. In the hazy night sky, he was like an immortal from the 9th heaven, descending to the human world. This aloof and arrogant youngster was like a cool breeze. He was smiling in a gentle manner. But, that gentle smile of his was emitting a cold and murderous aura. It was even bitingly cold and mournful than the bone-chilling November wind. That gentle youngster didn't have any weapon on his body. In fact, he didn't seem to be wearing the legendary divine sword on his body. But, the sharp aura emanating from his body made Mei Gao Jia feel that this youngster was an extremely ferocious and bloodthirsty peerless divine weapon. This youngster was none other than Jun Moxie. The debauchee of the past had revealed his sharpness for the first time today. He was faintly emitting the aura of an ambitious and ruthless person. Jun Moxie smiled gently. There wasn't the slightest trace of resentment in his eyes. He strolled over to the stone table, and leisurely poured himself a cup of wine. Then, he raised his cup and saluted, Lord Mei, I must first offer you a toast before I ask for the reason. Your calmness is worthy of a toast. It's a pity that this wine is of inferior quality. It can't compare with the best wine of my aristocratic hall. It's a pity that there's only one flaw. Mei Gao Jia laughed out loud. He raised his cup and drained it in one gulp. Then, his frail and old body suddenly straightened up. He slowly walked back, and sat opposite to Jun Moxie. Then, he slowly said, "Wine is wine. It's fine as long as it's wine. Why does young Master Jun care about it? Speaking of today's matter, the arrow is already knocked on the bowstring. Why does young Master Jun still have doubts in his heart? Now that things have come to this, I will tell you everything I know. However, I would like to ask young Master Jun. Is this young Master Jun's first stop?" "Nonsense. I just came from Master Kong's house." Jun Moxie casually translated from English to Chinese. "I presume that Senior Kong has already returned to heaven, right?" Mei Gao Jie sneered. "That's right. Lord Kong's temper is extremely unyielding. He's not very cooperative, and he's also very stubborn. I had no choice but to clench my teeth and stomp my feet. I didn't have the heart to send him to the Yellow Springs Road in a glorious manner. I presume that he's strolling back and forth up there at present. He, perhaps he's waiting for someone. Ha ha. That's right. That's right. We two old men have been together for a long time. So, this old man will certainly follow after you. However, I'm very interested to know what it is before I leave. What matter can make a peerless genius like young Master Jun so obsessed with it?" Mei Gao Jie's tone had a hint of ridicule when he had mentioned the word peerless genius. This old scholar had been poor his entire life. However, he had displayed a rare indifference and open-mindedness in the face of life and death. First question. How did Master Mei know that I would come today? As far as I can remember, I didn't send anyone to inform you of my arrival. Jun Mo Xia didn't seem to care. He continued to play with the empty cup in his hand, and he spun it nimbly in his hand. His eyes were focused on the cup. It seemed as if he was very interested in this ordinary wine cup. However, he didn't even look at Mei Gao Jie. Young Master Jun has humiliated my 3 disciples in public. You've made them insult this old man in public. So, this old man knew that you would come. And, I will settle this grudge tonight. Mei Gao Jie chuckled, "That's because you've already gone to the extreme. Both you and I don't have the slightest path of retreat. This old man would have risked his life tomorrow if you hadn't come today. And, I wouldn't have been able to shake your Jun family. But, I'm sure that a considerable number of your subordinates would have suffered a calamity. And, those people are under our control at this moment. The young master is very astute. So, it's impossible that you don't know about this matter. The young master doesn't care about their lives. But, Old Master Jun Zhantian and Great Marshal Jun Wui will certainly care about them." "That's right." Jun Moxie nodded slowly. "That's right. But, it's not the main reason. I want to see how much you know. Today's matter has revealed that the Jun family doesn't care about the imperial power. Moreover, they don't fear it. So, it would be meaningless for this old man to report to the emperor if I were to act tomorrow. So, I'll certainly use my strength this time. I won't need to go through the imperial court to deal a heavy blow to your Jun family. In fact, I won't be able to destroy you. But, I'll make you pay a heavy price. In fact, it'll be an unbearable price." He chuckled, "This old man is a civil official. But, there are many powerful people in this world who can kill without spilling blood. In fact, they're powerful enough to destroy unrivaled heroes. And, we civil officials are deeply rooted in the Tianxiang Imperial Court. So, you won't be able to stop us even if you have great strength. Therefore, your best method and time is to choose to make your move tonight. Moreover, the young master has achieved success at a young age. So, it's time for you to show off your abilities. And, the Jun family's fledgling needs a target to establish its might. And, this old man and Kong Ling Yang are undoubtedly the best targets to establish our might. Moreover, I've only known the young master for a short time. But, I know that the young master is a vengeful and venomous man. So, you won't wait until tomorrow even if you have the ability to deal with tomorrow's storm. Moreover, the young master has a filial heart even though his conduct is improper. And, Jun Zhantian will undoubtedly suffer the biggest blow if the Jun family's influence suffers. Therefore, you won't allow your grandfather to suffer a blow either. Sigh, this was an important consideration when this old man had drawn up a plan to deal with you. I had wanted to use the pressure of public opinion to force you to submit. But, it's a pity that the plans of God supersede the plans of man. Your adaptability may seem overbearing, but it's as powerful as a thunderbolt. And, it has successfully disrupted this old man's overall plan. I believe that you would have come here regardless of any of the reasons mentioned above. You would have come here if you hadn't come here. Then, you would have gone to Kong Ling Yang's house. Therefore, you would have come here. So, why wouldn't this old man wait here? Lord Mei treats this Jun Moxie with special respect. This junior feels very honored. Jun Moxie nodded in a profound manner. Mei Gaojia had obviously investigated and analyzed Jun Moxie in order to come to this conclusion. Therefore, Jun Moxie had treated me with special respect. Secondly, why didn't Lord Mei make any preparations when he knew that I would come? Lord Mei is a civil minister. But, he must have had a lot of suicide warriors under his command. He would have eliminated all future troubles if he could have killed me in one fell swoop. But, I didn't find any security when I came to your residence. So, it's obvious that Lord Mei has removed all of them. Why is that? Jun Moxie asked the second question. I mentioned that I've only known the young master for a short time. But, I know a lot about him. The young master's actions may seem arrogant and overbearing. In fact, they may even be absurd. But, I realize that every step of his is closely linked. And, his plans are far-reaching. The young master must have made thorough preparations since he dared to come here. I have a few suicide warriors under my command. But, how could they be a match for the Jun family? I'm afraid that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to chat with the young master in that case. Mei Gaojia smiled wisely. This old man is a scholar who doesn't have the strength to truss a chicken. I've never understood the cultivation of Xian Qi. And, I don't know the difference between Tian Xian and Xin Xian. But, this old man knows that I'm no match for the Jun family. And, this old man is here alone. So, the young master will certainly come and have a chat with me. I had thought that Lord Mei was a rotten scholar. But, it seems that you're a wise man. Jun Moxie laughed out loud. Then, he poured 2 cups of wine. Mo Xia would like to offer you another cup for what you've just said. Mei Gaojia's complexion was calm as he drank the wine. The third question. I, Jun Moxie, have behaved improperly. But, that's my own business. It's the Jun family's private business. What does it have to do with you? Besides, you know the truth of this matter. So, why do you insist on putting a bucket of sh*t on my head? Why do you insist on putting me to death? Jun Moxie couldn't understand this question. It seems that my personal moral corruption has nothing to do with the Tianxiang Empire's customs, right? Such a far-fetched accusation has provoked the Jun family's thunderous wrath. And, it's inviting a fatal disaster. So, why bother? I've never been a good person in the past if it's for the livelihood of the common people. But, I don't see you standing up for the people of the world. Won't you give me an explanation? This dispute ends with the young master. But, it also begins with the young master. Jun Zhantian and the old master Jun have some old grudges. But, this old man isn't unable to tolerate the existence of the Jun family. Moreover, the old master Jun is a good man for the country and the people. And, his son, Jun Wui, is also the same. This old man has different political views. And, this old man admires this father and son even though they fight on the surface. In fact, this old man wouldn't have impeached them if it had been for them. In fact, I would have done my best to protect them. But, this matter has happened because of you. Young Master Jun Moxie. Mei Gao Jia Lengleng smiled, that's because you're the kind of person who doesn't put the common people in your eyes. In fact, you're the kind of person who ignores the world. Jun Moxie, on this point, this old man will definitely not misjudge you. Speaking of which, it's laughable that someone like this old man is actually young master's confidant. And, a person like you is bound to cause endless disasters if you were to inherit the Jun family's enormous power. Even if you turn the entire Tianxiang kingdom upside down, this old man will not doubt it. Therefore, since you've made a name for yourself, it's a sign of danger. He must be strangled to death in time. Otherwise, Tianxiang kingdom will be destroyed in your hands. At present, it is only Tianxiang. If you succeed, it will affect the entire mortal world. You are bound to bring disaster to the world. Chapter 449. Besides, Jun Moxie's suspicions had already been confirmed. So, there was no need to confirm anything. All the suspicions were pointing in the same direction. Jun Moxie only needed an opportunity. Another thing is that you, Jun Moxie, are very dangerous, and the Jun family's strength is strong enough. However, the Jun family's strength has been scattered over the years. The world is at peace, and there aren't many big wars. So, you may not have the opportunity to make contributions even if you want to. At most, you'll become another Jun Zhantian. We can bear it, and we're happy to fight with you like this. Only when the civil and military are balanced can the country be at peace. However, your Jun family's strength has soared since the war with the Southern Heaven City. This speed of ascension was simply terrifying. The Jun family's strength would have increased by several folds if you had been fully fledged. Tianxiang's emperor will be neither a subject nor a subject at that time. Mei Gao Jia smiled bitterly. But, his face was full of pride as he smiled, this old man is an old minister of Tianxiang. My entire life has been dedicated to the Tianxiang Empire from the time I was a child until now. This old man will never allow the Jun family to shake the foundation of Tianxiang. I will fight with my life even if I have to die. So, that's how it is. Jun Moxie narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, but, I haven't done anything. So, why is Master Mei so sure that I will destroy the Tianxiang Empire? Young Master, you know this the best. So, why are you asking such a question? Mei Gao Jie sneered, young Master Jun is a peerless genius. Why have you been a debauchee for 10 years? Why have you endured for 10 years if your Xian cultivation is so exquisite? You have pretended to be a fool, destroyed your reputation, and become notorious. So, why? Young Master hasn't flown for 10 years. But, you've soared to the sky. You haven't cried for 10 years. But, when you cry, you've shaken the world. You have no respect for the emperor. Why? There's another reason for this. The old man says that he knows me well. But, he's mistaken about this. Jun Moxie smiled bitterly. This old man's eyesight, talent, and knowledge were indeed unique. However, the previous Mo Xia was a true scum. But ever since his rise, the previous Silk Pants had become a legend in the eyes of the world. Jun Moxie was equivalent to a legend who had endured hardships to gain courage. How ironic. If the original Mo Xia knew about this, he would probably die from shock again even if he became a ghost. This old man can guess a thing or two about young master's reason. However, this isn't the time to discuss this matter. Mei Gao Jia smiled and waved his hand. One last question. I'm afraid that just the two of you alone wouldn't be able to stir up such a huge storm. I'm sure there's another expert behind this. Although the two elders were scheming, they were not such despicable people. There must be someone else involved in this matter. If this young master's guess is correct, it should be someone from Shinxiai and Yutang, right? Jun Moxie's eyes revealed a sharp glint. You colluded with them to frame the Jun family, a pillar of the imperial court. This is tantamount to treason. Why? I asked you to give me an explanation when I first came here. Can you give me an explanation now? Ha ha ha, treason. This is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Mei Gaojia laughed heartily. The Jun family, the Dugu family, and the Murong family. We've been preparing our troops for many years, and will be able to protect our borders. The Jun family's destruction will cause chaos in Tianxiang at most. Even if the two great empires take advantage of this opportunity to invade Tianxiang, we'll be able to withstand it with our many years of accumulation. In fact, we won't be able to change dynasties even if we're defeated. But you, Jun Moxie, can't avoid such a rebellious matter if you're fully fledged. The survival of Tianxiang and this temporary chaos, it's obvious which is more important. So, there's no need to ask which choice we'll make. Elder Mei, please pay attention. Jun Moxie Lenglang looked at this old man. His eyes couldn't hide his biting cold. Your inference may be reasonable. But, it's only an inference. It's two different things from the truth. And, you've used such an inference to harm the Jun family. You've hurt the Empire's former protector. Don't you think that you've gone too far? Have you ever thought about how many people will die because of your unproven inference? Perhaps you have a grudge against the Jun family, or perhaps you don't like me. But, these things can't cover up the fact that you've distorted the truth to attack us. And, your inference is only your own opinion. You don't have any evidence. Most importantly, you've insulted a good woman who didn't hesitate to sacrifice her innocence to repay a debt of gratitude. And, you clearly know that she's innocent. She has nothing to do with this matter. You clearly know that this woman lost her chastity because of me, Jun Moxie. But, she's still as pure as ever. And, you also know that my third uncle adopted her as his daughter. She's no longer the daughter-in-law of the Jun family. She's no longer the sister-in-law of Jun Moxie. But, you've still clung to her original identity in the midst of your attacks. And, you've still done so. So, I want to ask. Are a woman's reputation and happiness something that can be abandoned, trampled, and used at will in the eyes of great scholars like you? Are you willing to sacrifice anyone in your eyes to achieve your goals? I want to know. What is the righteousness and righteousness that you great scholars have always advocated? Jun Moxie's tone was as biting cold as a knife as he continued to ask questions. Mei Gaojia raised his head arrogantly. However, he wasn't willing to back down. This kind of thing is very common. And, I don't care to explain it. But, I'll make an exception since young Master Jun has asked. She's only a woman. But, even a princess of the kingdom must be prepared to sacrifice herself for the country in this cruel political struggle. Sacrificing a woman in exchange for the peace of the world is a very worthwhile thing. Great profit without any capital. Why not? So what if she's innocent? She's only a woman, that's all. Your Excellency Mei, don't you think that these words of yours are very shameless? Jun Moxie sneered. What if it was your own daughter? What if it was your wife? Would you have done the same? Yes. This is how it should be. It's a matter of heaven and earth. This old man doesn't have anything to be reluctant about. Sacrificing one's life for the country is an honor for them. This old man wouldn't hesitate to put righteousness before family if Guan Qinghan were my daughter. In fact, I would even punish her with my own hands. Mei Gaojia raised his head arrogantly. His words were resolute and decisive. He didn't have the slightest bit of hesitation. In fact, he was proud of sacrificing his life. Jun Moxie was so angry that he started to laugh. He finally understood that his thoughts and the thoughts of these great Confucian scholars were actually completely different. Perhaps, this old man could argue with him on this issue for a year. And, he would still be able to speak with justice and conviction. Then, let me ask you. Did you feel a little bit guilty when you did this? Jun Moxie suppressed his churning blood and chi. What a joke. This matter is a matter of heaven and earth. What's the point of feeling guilty? Women are like clothes. What's wrong with throwing them away? Mei Gao Jia looked at Jun Moxie with extreme disdain. I thought that you were a man of character. But, I hadn't expected that you would be so sentimental. Jun Moxie, this old man will warn you before I die. A woman's beauty is not related to a great plan. A hero's greatest taboo is sentimentality. Don't let this old man look down on you. It's my fault. What you said just now had given me the illusion that I was a close friend. I shouldn't have told you about this matter. Jun Moxie retreated in defeat. He shook his head and laughed. I've never been sentimental. But, even the country can't touch my people. Sir Mei, this is another reason why I've come to find you today. And, this reason is something that you'll never be able to imagine. Mei Gao Jia, you have a bellyful of righteousness and righteousness. But, a person like you will never understand the perseverance of a man. Therefore, you may succeed in politics, but you'll never become a man. Frankly speaking, you're a surrendering party in my eyes. And, that includes your disciples. Not to mention those who didn't enter the imperial court, those who did are all shameless and unscrupulous people. Nonsense. Mei Gao Jia became angry. He had students all over the world. This was Mei Gao Jia's greatest achievement. He was also his greatest pride. Seeing his disciples all over the world was his greatest comfort. No matter what Jun Mo Xia said to him, he wouldn't be moved. He would just laugh it off. But now that this matter had been brought up, it had triggered his reverse scale. This white-haired old man instantly became as agitated as a fighting cock. Which one of my disciples isn't a pillar of the empire? 19 of them have become the empire's feudal officials. They've brought grace to the 4 seas, and they've brought prosperity to the people. They've become the empire's pillars. Jun Moxie, you're just a good-for-nothing. What qualifications do you have to talk about my disciples? They're the empire's outstanding talents. The old man stood up. His face was flushed with excitement. His fingers were also trembling. Sit down. Old man, why are you so excited? This young master has overestimated your disciples by saying that they're trash. Trash can be recycled and reused. They don't even have this value. Jun Moxie sneered. He turned his palm over. Mei Gao Jia, open your old eyes wide. Take a good look at the political achievements of your disciples. They've brought prosperity to the 4 seas. A thin booklet appeared in his hand, and he threw it towards Mei Gao Jia. Mei Gao Jia was startled as soon as he received it. He suspiciously looked at Jun Moxie. Then, he slowly read it. On it, it really was the glorious achievements of his disciples. A certain year, month, and day, a certain disciple used his authority to bully a certain wealthy merchant. He demanded a certain amount of bribes. A certain day, he forcefully took the daughter of that merchant as a concubine. He hounded her parents to death. Then, this disciple had violated the law. There were a great number of incidents. There were no less than dozens of them. And, each and every one of these incidents was well documented. There were witnesses and material evidence. There was no doubt about it. Then, there was another incident. Every incident had a clear date of investigation. But, the date of the investigation was different as well. Some pages had yellowed, and the edges of the pages had curled up. These pieces of evidence were hard to refute. Perhaps, it wouldn't be enough to sentence these guys to death by dismemberment 100 times if they were to be punished in accordance with these incidents. Mei Gao Jia flipped through several pages. Then, his hand trembled, and the booklet fell on the table with a clatter. Chapter 450. Erupt. The 4th chapter. Tears streamed down Mei Gao Jia's face at this moment. The old man felt ashamed under Jun Moc's knife-like gaze of disdain. This is the disciple that I've painstakingly trained. This is the pillar that I've cultivated for the empire. But, what's the difference between this and the so-called corrupt officials? What's the difference between this and the vermin of the nation? Mei Gao Jia stared blankly in silence. Mei Gao Jia, this is the disciple that you've painstakingly trained for so many years. You think of them as the pillars of the empire. However, these are only a small part of them. You've been in charge of the Wenxing Heavenly Institute for decades. How many disciples have you taught? Mei Gao Jia, you've always stood at the highest point of morality. You don't think that you're stuck in the filth of the world. But, you've come to accuse me of bringing disaster to Tianxiang. Why don't you open your eyes and see clearly who's bringing disaster to Tianxiang? The destruction that you've caused is thousands of times greater than mine. It's tens of thousands of times greater. Mei Gao Jia, let me ask you. What qualifications do you have to accuse me? Even if you accuse me of rebelling, I still need troops, right? Dare I ask where these troops came from? Wasn't it all because your disciples forced the people to rebel against the government? Mei Gao Jia, you'll be my biggest accomplice if I rebel. You'll be my biggest help, and my most hidden accomplice. Do you agree with what I've said? Great Sage Mei. Jun Moxie chuckled, I wouldn't have known if I hadn't said it. But, it turns out that we're one family, the same group of people. When a crow meets an old crow, no one can say that they're very clean. Am I right or not? Mei Gao Jia staggered 2 steps back. His calm face had long since vanished. His complexion had turned deathly pale, like dead ashes. Mei Gao Jia. Master Mei. Mr. Wise. You keep on saying that you've cultivated the pillars of the empire for decades. But, do you see what kind of trash you've nurtured today? They're nothing more than millions of vermin that will bring disaster to the nation. Ha ha ha, this is ridiculous. Look at the place where you live. What's the difference between you and a beggar? But do you think you can make up for the sins you have committed by remaining uncorrupted? No. This was simply too many to count. If you say that I bring disaster to the world, then what about you? I really can't think of any adjectives to describe it. Perhaps you can give yourself an explanation. Jun Moxie's words became sharper and sharper. At this moment, Jun Dashao's true purpose finally revealed itself. The purpose of Jun Moxie's visit was to catch all these hypocrites in one fell swoop. However, Jun Moxie's investigation was only the tip of the iceberg. Even if the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute had 2,000 students graduating every year for the past 50 years, there would still be more than 100,000 graduates. 100,000 people were like an incomparably huge net, entrenched in the entire Tianxiang Empire. These people were definitely an extremely large force. Even if only a small portion of them were in high positions, they could definitely cause great losses. Jun Moxie was not a good person. If these people hadn't offended him, then Jun Moxie would have been too lazy to care about them. At most, he would have extended his hand whenever he'd come across these injustices. However, the Confucian world had taken the initiative to attack him. This had made Jun Moxie anxious. Therefore, Jun Moxie's first step was to thoroughly eliminate these scum of the world. If 10,000 people blocked his way, then he would kill 10,000. If 100,000 people blocked his way, then he would kill 100,000. Jun Moxie wouldn't be lenient towards such people. So what if he had to kill 100,000 people? I'm an assassin, but my heart is filled with a myriad of colors. I don't seek justice, but I only want justice. It doesn't matter who it is, justice. The human world can't give, the law can't give, but I will give. All of these were the beliefs of the evil monarch. Lord Mei, have you calculated the huge losses you've caused for the empire? Did you think that I was insulting you when I instigated the so-called 3 great scholars to insult you? I was only using their mouths to scold you to wake you up. I wanted to make you realize your error. But, it's a pity that you refuse to realize your error. You keep saying that you're doing this for the sake of the Tianxiang Empire. So, let me ask you. How will you face the sins you've caused? Do you want to atone for these sins? Jun Moxie's voice was somewhat sinister. I made my students insult my teacher in public. Then, I made my teacher sell out his students. You should thank me, be grateful, and worship me. But, I'd like to see how sanctimonious hypocrites like you can establish a foothold in this world after your true colors have been exposed. Jun Moxie fiercely thought. Atone for my sins? Mei Gao Jie's cloudy eyes lit up. It seemed as if he had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Can my great sins really be atoned for? No. Some sins can't be redeemed. But, the ones that can be redeemed can still be remedied. I believe that Lord Mei can do his best to reduce the sins that can be redeemed. Jun Moxie was like an old witch tempting Little Red Riding Hood as he spoke in a patient and systematic manner. Ha ha. Jun Moxie, I understand your true intentions. You want to use this old man's hand to eradicate my students. And, you want the Confucian faction to never have a foothold in Tianxiang. I understand your intentions. But, this matter has arisen because of me. This old man may be innocent, but I still have a loyal heart. Since I've brought disaster to the human world, how can I not find a way to eliminate it? I'm perfectly aware that you're using me. But, I'm willing to do so. Mei Gao Jie smiled bitterly. He frowned and said, the heavens have pity on me. I'm an old horse that has lost its way. But, I've finally woken up. So, I should give an explanation for everything that I've done. But, the Confucian faction can't be destroyed. Even if Tianxiang ends, it's bound to have a new atmosphere. This old man will be a heartless teacher this time. But, what about it? Mei Gao Jie's body suddenly trembled as he said this. And, tears streamed down his face. The old man thought of the students that he had personally taught. They had grown from ordinary youngsters to famous talents of their generation. Then, they had embarked on an official career. They had become high-ranking officials. Perhaps, they had even become officials of a county or a city. He had poured his life's blood, sweat, and tears. But, his endless expectations had turned into bubbles. He had painstakingly planned to establish the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute. He wanted to leave his name in the annals of history. He wanted to leave his name in the annals of history. But, he had left his name in the annals of history. But, he had left behind an infamy that would last for thousands of years. Could it be that he had made a mistake? Mr. Mei, your starting point wasn't wrong. And, no one can criticize your original intention. But, you've overlooked the greed of human nature. Jun Moxie seemed to have seen through his thoughts. So, he straightly dispelled his doubts. It's true that one must have the ability. But, morality is even more important. The more powerful a person is, the more disasters he can bring upon himself. Your Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute boasts of righteousness every day. But, it's only spoken on the lips. And, it's turned into a slogan. But, it hasn't formed true righteousness in the hearts of the people of the Institute. So, the so-called righteousness has become a sharp weapon for you to attack others. You've done evil deeds in a righteous and self-righteous manner. Jun Moxie chuckled and said, you must know that it's not difficult to find a dignified reason for a heinous crime even if it's done. But, it's an easy task for scholars like you who have read a lot of books. And, you've become more and more self-righteous in this manner. And, you can well imagine the consequences of doing so in the long run. A man must first be upright in his heart. And, to educate a man must first be virtuous. Jun Moxie said, this is the true meaning of education. A man must first be upright in his heart. And, to educate a man must first be virtuous. These two sentences exploded in Mei Gao Jie's mind like a morning bell. Suddenly, he seemed to understand a lot of things. Then, he turned around and entered his room. Soon, he came out with a thick name list. The name list was marked in great detail. Since the establishment of the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute, the first batch of students had entered the official career, when they had taken up their posts, when they had been transferred, the process, and what they were doing at the moment. Every one of them knew it very clearly. This was Mei Gao Jie's greatest pride and achievement. It was also something that he had often taken out to show off. But, it had now become a life-threatening talisman for the students. Jun Moxie, it doesn't matter whether you're good or bad. It doesn't matter whether you're doing this for justice or for personal enmity. But, this old man believes you because of what you've just said about the true meaning of education. But, please get rid of these black sheep. This old man owes you a favor. I'll certainly repay you in my next life. Mei Gao Jie's complexion turned serious. He suddenly shouted in a stern voice, "But, you must investigate this matter thoroughly. You mustn't kill the innocent for the sake of my students. Otherwise, this old man won't let you off even if I become a ghost." Jun Moxie snorted and said, "I've never considered myself a good person. But, I'm much more conscientious than you guys. I won't be able to sleep peacefully if I accidentally kill a good person. What's the point of living if I can't even sleep peacefully?" Mei Gao Jie burst into loud laughter. His voice was mournful as he suddenly muttered, "Sleep peacefully. Good. 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 This old man has taught hundreds of thousands of students. But, it's only today that I understand the true meaning of the word education. This old man hates it. Why did I turn a deaf ear to these words? Snort disdainfully. Ha ha ha. I wanted to leave my name in the annals of history. But, I didn't expect to leave my name in infamy for 10,000 years. This old man hates it very much. I hate it very much. I'm the only one in the world who would do such a ridiculous thing by borrowing the hands of my enemies. Ha ha ha. He laughed twice. Then, he suddenly retreated 2 steps, and rushed forward. Jun Moxie sighed and dodged to the side. Bang! Mei Gao Jie's old head hit the stone table. His brains burst open, and he died a violent death. His eyes were wide open on his white-haired old face. They were firmly looking at the dusky sky. One could faintly see that his eyes were brimming with shame. Mei Gao Jie, if I say that you're righteous, then you're hopelessly pedantic. If I say that you're muddle-headed, then you can clearly distinguish right from wrong. You deserve to die, but you don't deserve to die. But, you've offended me. You don't deserve to die. You deserve to die. Chapter 451. I'm sorry for the late update. I won't talk about the reason, because no matter what the reason is, it won't cover up the fact that I'm late. I'll make it up to you today, and then I'll explain everything to you and ask for your forgiveness. I'm sorry brothers and sisters, I've kept you waiting. That night, Tian Xiang was bathed in blood. This was another bloody night after the previous one, and the level of slaughter this time was even greater than the previous one. This night was destined to be a sleepless one. The next day, Jun Mo Xia had forcefully entered the city. Then, the 3 great scholars had insulted their master in public. This explosive news had spread like wildfire throughout the city. The previous shocking news hadn't even subsided yet. Then, the Meng family's 70 businesses in the Tianxiang city had been attacked at the same time. This news was even more shocking than the previous one. At the same time, Marshal Jun Zhantian issued an order: all garrison troops are to await further orders, and those who disobey will be executed. Not long after, another marshal, Dugu Zongheng, issued an order: none of the troops are to act rashly, and not a single soldier is to enter or leave the barracks. Those who disobey will be executed without mercy. Almost in the blink of an eye, the Murong clan gathered all their members who were outside and returned to their homes at lightning speed. the Li family remained silent, and didn't say a word. As for the other Tianxiang families, they also chose to wait and see. After that, the imperial palace issued an edict: all imperial guards are not to leave their posts, and must await the imperial edict. This was tantamount to saying that the current Tianxiang city, under the influence of the imperial family, had become a forbidden zone that was ruled by a single power. A forbidden zone that belonged to the Jun family. Groups of warriors belonging to the Jun family unscrupulously broke into the Meng family's businesses, and all of the Meng family's management personnel were ruthlessly expelled. Anyone who resisted was beaten up, and many of them had their arms and legs broken, and even lost their lives because of this. In short, all of the Meng family's external forces within the city were completely wiped out in a single day. Apart from the Jun family, the military, and the Dugu family had also joined in. For a moment, Tianxiang city was in a state of chaos, and everyone was in a state of panic. Jun Moxie went on a killing spree on the streets. Blood flowed everywhere. Miserable cries rang out from the flagpole until it was completely extinguished. This shock had yet to subside, and then such a shocking thing happened. Following which, before nightfall, they discovered the minced corpses of the 3 scholars who had escaped at the city gates. This was the so-called counterattack from those hypocrites, but that was all. Because then, a large number of officials were suddenly killed. In the dark of the night, the assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights, Zhao Qingjun, was bent over his desk, writing at a rapid speed. He was writing a memorial to the Jun family. He was prepared to face the emperor tomorrow and bring the Jun family down no matter what. Assistant Minister Zhao was very confident at this moment. Under the strong leadership of the 2 teachers, the strength of the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute had been completely mobilized. In addition, these people had formed a huge network of relationships over the years. So, they were an exceptionally powerful force. More than 300 officials, both inside and outside the capital, had signed a joint petition to impeach the Jun family. How spectacular would that be? I believe that even the emperor wouldn't be able to take it lightly. Your Jun family may be in control of the Tianxiang army, but you're still just a family. Can you fight against the entire Tianxiang civil court system? Even if that little thief from the Jun family went crazy and killed people in an attempt to scare them off, so what? It was just a reckless act of a brave man. Humph, the bigger the mess he makes, the better. The more people he kills, the better. That way, there will be no room for turning the situation around. The Jun family will also be forced into a dead end, and will be consigned to eternal damnation. Jun Mo Xia, go ahead and mess around, go ahead and mess around. So what if you make trouble? If the emperor wants you dead, then you must die. But we have enough power to sway the emperor's opinion. We can absolutely use the emperor to put you to death, and the entire Jun family to death. One imperial edict is enough to consign you to eternal damnation. The Jun family is bound to be destroyed. Therefore, Assistant Minister Zhao had to stay up all night to produce a well-written and well-organized attack on the Jun family. This would be a sharp weapon for tomorrow's imperial hall. It was finally done. Assistant Minister Zhao let out a long sigh, and couldn't help but recite it in a soft voice. The more he recited, the more agitated he became. It seemed as if His Majesty was standing right in front of him. This article was truly brilliant. It had made the Jun family, the protector of Tianxiang, look like they had no good points at all. In fact, it seemed as if the extermination of their entire family wasn't enough. As for the main culprits, Jun Moxie and Guan Qinghan, they had no sense of shame at all. Saying that the men were thieves and the women were prostitutes was the most polite way to put it. The men were despicable, and the women were lowly. They had no sense of propriety or shame. If they were allowed to live in this world, then they would be letting the emperor down, letting the people down, letting Tianxiang down, and letting the world down. In short, even 10,000 deaths wouldn't be enough to atone for their crimes. Good article. This is the best article this official has ever written in this life. I'm afraid that I won't be able to produce such a good article in the future. Assistant Minister Zhao read the article to his heart's content, and sighed with satisfaction. He felt very good about himself as he shook his head. He felt that this was the first time he had produced such a good article ever since he had left the Wenqing Heavenly Literature Institute. Sharp words like this, but it seemed to be filled with the most concrete evidence. However, it was completely empty. Moreover, it could still kill someone. It was truly rare to see an article like this. It is indeed a good article. Just as Assistant Minister Zhao was praising himself, a sudden sigh came from behind him. Not bad. Ah. Assistant Minister Zhao nodded proudly. Then, he was suddenly shocked. Who is it? The article is really good. However, the person is not that good either. However, there is one thing that you are right about. You definitely won't be able to produce such a good article in the future. Because you won't have the chance anymore. Zhao Qingjun, a person like you, where in this world can you display your outstanding talent? You should go to hell. That place is more suitable for you. As he spoke softly, a white-clothed youth slowly walked in front of Zhao Qingjun. He grabbed the memorial and unfolded it in the wind. Suddenly, with a whoosh, the memorial turned into dust and scattered in all directions. Then, this youth's cold, lightning-like gaze stared coldly at Zhao Qingjun's face. Like two sharp blades that had condensed into solid form. Jun Moxie. You, how did you get in? Under the tyrant young master's sharp gaze, Zhao Qingjun stood up in extreme panic and shouted in a panic, "Someone come! Someone come!" However, his voice was completely unable to be transmitted out for some unknown reason. Even he himself felt that his voice was extremely weak. If he didn't know what he was shouting, he might not even be able to hear it. Jun Moxie smiled cruelly. He suddenly stretched out a hand and grabbed Zhao Qingjun's neck. Just like that, he lifted Zhao Qingjun's feet off the ground. At this moment, Assistant Minister Zhao was terrified to the extreme, but he could not make any sound, much less speak a complete sentence. The air in his lungs had already been cut off. His entire face instantly flushed red, his two legs kicking weakly in the air, and a pitiful light shot out from his eyes. He wanted to beg for mercy, but he still could not utter a single word. You want to harm me? Jun Moxie's calm eyes were like two deep little ponds as he looked at Zhao Qingjun's face. If you only wanted to target me, I might not care too much. But since you actually want to harm my family, then you must die. Jun Moxie increased the strength in his hand a little more. The bones in Zhao Qingjun's neck cracked, and his tongue stuck out. It hung so long that it almost reached his chest. Zhao Qingjun's expression could be said to be extremely pitiful. You still want to harm my woman, and you even use such a vicious method. Jun Moxie exerted more force. He did not have the slightest bit of pity in his heart, and his eyes were as calm as ever. But Zhao Qingjun's neck gave off a crisp sound. It was broken. To be able to turn merit into fault, right into wrong, and black into white, it is truly an impressive ability. Therefore, you sanctimonious hypocrites really deserve to die. Jun Moxie let go, and Zhao Qingjun's body fell to the ground with a bang. His limbs twitched a few times, and then there was no sound. He was already dead, but his eyes were still wide open, they were filled with fear and disbelief. You still dare to die with remaining grievances. Jun Moxie wiped his hands, and put down the towel in an elegant posture. Then, he took a step forward. With this step, he stepped on the face of Zhao Qingjun's corpse that had fallen to the ground, and then he disappeared without a trace. After he disappeared, Zhao Qingjun's eyeballs suddenly exploded with two loud popping sounds. A piece of white paper that was full of words floated in from outside the door. It was gently pasted on Zhao Qingjun's badly mutilated face, and covered this extremely cruel scene. The white shadow was like a ghost, and it flashed in and out of many places in the Tianxiang city like a lightning bolt. one or more officials would perish in every place. Their deaths were too horrible to look at. Almost 80% of the officials who came out of the Wenxing Heavenly Institute had been slaughtered. In just one night, the death toll had already exceeded 30. Some of these people lived in the eastern part of the city, and some lived in the western part of the city. They weren't close to each other, but they weren't gathered in one place either. However, all of them had been killed in one night. According to the speculations of those who were observant, the assassin organization had to have dispatched at least 10 top-notch assassins at the same time tonight in order to achieve such a shocking result. Whether it was the court officials or the officials of the capital, which one of them wasn't under strict protection. However, even if they were under strict protection, they were still killed in silence. Moreover, they didn't make any sound, and didn't leave any trace. There were even a few officials who were killed in their sleep. But, the people who were sleeping next to them didn't even realize it. They woke up the next day, and realized that they had been hugging a dead man for the entire night. The expression on the dead man's face clearly indicated that he had been greatly frightened, or perhaps he had been tortured. However, he hadn't realized it even though he was right next to him. This kind of assassin, this kind of killing method, was really rare and shocking. However, there was one thing that these dead people had in common: each of them had a piece of paper on top of their bodies. The reason for their death was explained clearly on the paper. Every single one of them had committed a heinous crime. Their blood and tears were written on the paper, and the evidence of their crimes was conclusive. Countless people in the Tianxiang city had spontaneously lit up firecrackers after the news of these officials' deaths had spread. For a time, it seemed as if they were celebrating the new year. Many people burned incense and prayed, and kowtowed to the heavens as tears streamed down their cheeks. However, it was almost the end of the year. So, everyone had a place to buy firecrackers and candles. If it had been any other time, then it wouldn't have been an easy matter to buy such a large number of firecrackers. However, the firecrackers in the Tianxiang city had suddenly become expensive. These people who were celebrating and praying were the people who had been persecuted by these officials. In the past, they had pleaded in many ways, but there was no way out. But now, the heavens had finally opened their eyes. Good will be rewarded, and evil will be repaid in the end. Although they didn't know which great hero had done this, but this nameless hero had undoubtedly become the benefactor of the Tianxiang city, and had given birth to tens of thousands of people. Countless families had raised the memorial tablet of this nameless benefactor. Most people had speculated that this matter had been done by the Jun family. After all, these people had spared no effort to uproot the Jun family with the help of Jun Moxie and Guanqing Han. They were the absolute main forces of the imperial court. Perhaps this was the revenge of the Jun family. However, these thoughts were kept in the hearts of everyone. Moreover, no one dared to say it out loud. The people who had received kindness couldn't repay it. So, they could only raise the memorial tablet of their nameless benefactor. In the early hours of the morning, Jun Moxie appeared in front of the gate of the Jun family's residence. He was wearing a snow-white robe, and had a faint smile on his face. His entire body was strangely warm. Although his eyes were sharp, they were calm. His sword was hanging at his waist, and his entire body was spotless. In fact, he looked like a young man who had gone out for a morning stroll. He was exercising, and had leisurely returned after admiring the flowers. However, no one could have imagined that this gentle, and handsome young man was the executioner who had just slaughtered the entire Tianxiang city. In fact, he had taken the lives of more than 30 high-ranking officials. The sword hanging at his waist was as clear as water. However, it had already drunk its fill of the blood of corrupt officials. The Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute had been working hard for the past few decades. So, how could they have climbed to such a high position in the capital? Moreover, it was unknown how much effort they had expended in order to successfully blend into this circle. But now, everything had been destroyed by Daxiao's sword. Daxiao could have arranged for his subordinates to carry out these tasks. However, Jun Moxie hadn't carried out such an assassination mission in a long time. It could be said that his hands were itching for action. Therefore, he decided to do it himself. He wanted to send these vermin to hell. Although this was for the sake of the Jun family's affairs, but this feeling of getting rid of evil for the sake of the people made Jun Moxie very happy. This was a kind of spiritual comfort, and the redemption of his conscience. Although the entire process had been full of bloody killings, Da Xiao didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt. On the contrary, there was a feeling of justice is on my sword, and justice is in my hands. This was a feeling of being in control of good and evil, rewards and punishments. To outsiders, this was a cruel and bloodthirsty act. However, Jun Moxie wasn't aware of this. Outsiders can say whatever they want. What does it have to do with me? I have a clear conscience in my actions. Justice is in my heart, even in the face of justice. Jun Wui stood in front of his small courtyard, smiling as he looked at him. Ever since Jun Wui had beaten up Xiao Han in front of the army, he could no longer hide the fact that he had recovered from his disability. Third Master Jun had finally gotten rid of the wheelchair. Therefore, he had been standing for the past few days. He even wished that he could sleep standing. Those who had never been disabled would never be able to experience the blissful feeling of supporting their own body with their own 2 feet. This was simply a type of super enjoyment. Moreover, Jun Wuyi's sudden rise to power was a trivial matter in comparison to the Jun family's sudden rise to prominence. In fact, the crime of deceiving the emperor had been left unsettled. Is it done? Was it very satisfying? Jun Wui asked. Ah, it was very satisfying. However, I couldn't kill them. I didn't feel satisfied. Jun Moxie smiled mischievously. Seeing that Jun Wui was about to start lecturing him again, he quickly slipped into his own courtyard, leaving behind a few words. Ah, I haven't slept for a whole night. I'm really tired. I'm going to sleep now, third uncle. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. It's only early in the morning, and you want to see me tomorrow? Jun Wui was about to reprimand him, but he shut his mouth. He smiled helplessly. My nephew has grown up. Moreover, his martial arts are unpredictable. He has a sense of propriety. I might as well let him do as he pleases. At the same time, on the same night, below the snowy peak, there was a fierce battle. It was an extremely tragic battle. One side was the third elder and the others who had just returned from thousands of miles away. On the other side, was the Silver Blizzard City's great elder, Xiao Xingyun, and a large group of experts. The people of the Silver Blizzard City had traveled thousands of miles back. The atmosphere on the way back was extremely heavy. They had brought along 3 people who were half dead. These 3 people were originally from the Silver City, but they had now become traitors. Such a strong contrast made even the third elder, who had lived for 70 or 80 years, unable to bear it. 2 of them were old brothers who had grown up with him. Although there had been friction over the years, and although they had fought and schemed against each other, they had still been through thick and thin for 80 years. Old brothers of 80 years. One belonged to the Silver City's Han family, while the other belonged to the Xiao family. However, even if they were sworn enemies, they should have developed some subtle feelings for each other after 80 years of living together. In other words, they should have developed a feeling of dependence. Even if it wasn't friendship, seeing him reduced to a half-dead and crippled state after 80 years of living together would still make one's heart ache. But why did they betray him? Wouldn't it be good if they maintained this way? Wouldn't it be good if everyone was wholeheartedly working for the Silver City? Whether the Silver City was in the hands of the Han family or the Xiao family, wasn't it still the Silver City? Who in the world didn't know that the Silver Blizzard City's Han family and the Xiao family were one family? It was only the title of the city lord. Was it really that important? Could it be that the Xiao family could change its name after taking over the Silver City? This wasn't a change of dynasty. Chapter 452. The first chapter will be released immediately. The next chapter will be released immediately. The third elder and the others were very sad, angry, and puzzled. The 7 swords, the third elder, and the others finally arrived at the snowy peak after a long and arduous journey. They would arrive at the snowy peak of the Silver City as soon as they crossed over it. However, it was extremely cold here, and the sky was filled with snow and wind. However, the people of the Silver City were accustomed to the cold. In fact, they were even more accustomed to such harsh weather. After all, they had grown up in such an environment. The others weren't afraid of the cold, but those who were seriously injured couldn't. They knew that those 3 were traitors of the Silver City, but they still tried their best to take care of them after the first few days of anger, so that their injuries wouldn't worsen. After all, humans were sentimental creatures. Mu Shuatong had once asked if they should send back a messenger eagle to inform the higher-ups of the Silver City. However, the third elder firmly rejected this proposal after some thought. The reason for this was none other than the fact that the Silver Blizzard City's intelligence system was under the control of the Shao family. And, this situation had become even more obvious since the birth of the little princess, Han Yen Meng, in the past few years. He had always thought that the Shao family and the Han family were one big family. So, he didn't think much of it. But now, it seemed that the Shao family had already planned this. He hadn't paid any attention to it before, but now, he felt his hair stand on end. The Shao family would get their hands on the news if they sent back a messenger eagle. And, the Han family would become passive if that happened. Therefore, the experienced and prudent third elder chose to play it safe, and rushed back to the Silver City through the night. The City Lord and the old City Lord would be in charge of everything as long as they appeared at the gates of the Silver City. However, he hadn't expected that they would be intercepted by the Great Elder, Shao Xingyun, and a large number of experts as soon as they arrived at the snowy peak. He had sealed it off so strictly, so how did he get the news? Big brother? What are you doing here? The third elder looked at Shao Xingyun in surprise. He wasn't feigning civility. He knew that his big brother had ulterior motives. But, he had been his big brother for 80 years. It wasn't easy to change this form of address after seeing him in person. Even though he had cursed thousands of times on the way here, he still couldn't accept such a cruel outcome when he saw that familiar face. Big brother? Ha ha ha, you still have the face to call me big brother? Shao Xingyun's face was overcast as he looked at Chu Yang. It seemed as if he wanted to swallow Chu Yang whole. You killed my second brother. You killed my grandson. You killed my great-grandson. You even crippled my 200-year-old brothers for the rest of their lives. You. Now that things have come to this, you still have the face to call me big brother. You have the nerve to call me that. This old man is embarrassed to agree. This old man can't afford to call you big brother. Shao Xingyun sneered. His gaze was as sharp as a knife. Han Fei Yun, you're really bold. The Silver Blizzard City's greatest taboo is internal strife. Yet, you've wantonly slaughtered your fellow disciples and committed all sorts of crimes. Why don't you kneel down and admit your guilt? What are you waiting for? Ha ha ha. Shao Xingyun, I won't call you big brother if you say that I don't deserve to call you big brother. Everyone is well aware of the situation. So, why must you distort the truth? I'd like to ask you to ask yourself, do you still deserve to be called big brother by me? The third elder, Han Fei Yun, laughed mournfully. The beard on his old face trembled, and his eyes slowly turned red. Shao Xingyun, I didn't expect you to commit such a treacherous act. You've betrayed the Silver Blizzard City. You've been arrogant. You've even tried to take over the City Lord's position. This is the true ambition of a wolf. Treachery. Ha ha ha. Shao Xingyun laughed insolently, you're saying that I'm treacherous. Everyone knows who the first City Lord of the Silver Blizzard City was. Han Fei Yun, let me tell you that it was my Shao family's ancestor. Why did my Shao family's ancestor die? It was because of your Han family. My ancestor founded the Silver Blizzard City. He carried it forward step by step. Finally, he died for them. And there were already descendants of my Shao family in this world at that time. The son inherits his father's legacy. This is a principle that hasn't changed for thousands of years. Han Fei Yun, let me ask you this. If the old city lord of the Silver Blizzard City had passed away, wouldn't the young city lord, Han Zhanmeng, have succeeded to the position? Xiao Xingyun asked in a sinister manner. The third elder was at a loss for words. Everyone had their reasons. But, the Han family's actions at that time were also justified if one were to say that the Han family had acted improperly. However, the Han family hadn't done anything wrong to the Shao family. Even though they knew that the Shao family had used the name of the Silver Blizzard City to commit evil deeds, they didn't do anything about it. In fact, they had even erased their conscience to help the Shao family. And, this guilt had greatly fueled the Shao family's arrogance. However, the descendants of the Han family had been taught by their ancestors to tolerate the people of the Shao family. Therefore, Shao Han's matter had caused such a huge disturbance. What's wrong? Are you speechless? The Han family would have supported the Shao family's successor to the position of city lord if they'd truly cared about our benefactor and friendship. Then, they would have done their best to assist him. This is the proper course of action for a benefactor. But, the Han family only gave an illusory bullshit oath from the beginning. Then, they shamelessly usurped the position of city lord in front of all the heroes of the world. The original young city lord had become a mere disciple of the Silver Blizzard City. And, the Han family had become the city lord of the Silver Blizzard City. As the saying goes, one must repay the kindness of a drop of water with a fountain of water. And, the Han family had immediately usurped the property of their benefactor's descendant after they'd received the kindness of their benefactor. Ha ha ha, they'd usurped someone else's property, and had done it in such a righteous and benevolent manner. In fact, they'd even received the praise of all the people in the world. Han Fei Yun, don't you think it's very funny? Why aren't you speaking? Xiao Xingyun's attitude became increasingly arrogant when he saw that the third elder wasn't replying. You're the one who's talking nonsense. The Supreme Union had been destroyed, and all the heroes of the world had been vying for supremacy. The Silver Blizzard City had suffered many unforeseen events, and was on the verge of destruction. So, it would have been in danger of being swallowed up by other forces if they hadn't been able to make a clear order to rule the world. The Han family had bravely taken over the Silver Blizzard City. Then, they'd slowly built up the foundation of the Silver Blizzard City. And, the Han family had always been at the forefront in every battle. And, they'd always been in the safest position in order to protect the Shao family. Can you deny that? Moreover, the Silver Blizzard City had only been a medium-sized force in the world at that time. It couldn't have been considered as a superpower like it is today. The old city lord had only picked up a hot potato. And, he'd given up his entire life for it. And, that's why the Silver Blizzard City was able to reach its current scale. It can be said that the Silver Blizzard City was able to reach its current state because of the old city lord. Can you deny this, Xiao Xingyun? Why can't your Shao family speak with your conscience? Is it fun to confuse black and white? The third elder, Han Fei Yun, burst into wild laughter. His face was full of disdain. The Han family has dealt with the aftermath of the Shao family for hundreds of years. How many times have we erased our conscience? And, it's all because of that promise. That promise has been suppressing the Han family for hundreds of years. What grievances do you have? He had already shed all pretense of cordiality. So, he might as well speak openly. Nonsense. The Silver Blizzard City had belonged to the Han family at that time. How could he not have risked his life? That was his own foundation. He had swindled and stolen it back. Haha, the Shao family's property had become the Han family's. And, you're still talking about it in such a dignified manner. And, You're even talking about life and death. Isn't it a matter of life and death after the Han family had taken over the Silver Blizzard City as well? Why is it that only the Han family can pass through the same amount of power? Xiao Xingyun roared in anger. Don't tell me that the Silver Blizzard City's strength wouldn't be the same if the Xiao family had taken over the city lord's position. Would their strength weaken? What kind of bullshit logic is this? According to what you're saying, the Han family wouldn't have contributed to the Silver Blizzard City's survival if the Han family hadn't taken over the city lord's position, right? Xiao Xingyun snorted and said, that's a disgraceful argument. You're just using your own despicable actions as an excuse for righteousness. You're twisting words and forcing logic. Don't think too much of it. What's shameless? Your Han family is the crown of shamelessness. You're twisting words and forcing logic. The third elder, Han Fei Yun's eyes turned red with anger. His fingers trembled. The courage of a leader of a force is directly related to the life and death of that force. Don't you understand such a simple truth? The Xiao family's descendants were weak and young at that time. So, how could they have had the ability to support the Silver Blizzard City? How could they have been compared to the great talent and bold vision of the old city lord? You're simply trying to pin a crime on me. So, there's no need to worry about excuses. In the end, don't you just want the power of the Silver Blizzard City? Is it necessary to implicate the ancestors in your selfish struggle for power? Don't you think that you're too despicable? Xiao Xingyun sneered indifferently, don't talk nonsense, Han Fei Yun. You don't need to waste time. Do you know why this old man is wasting his breath on you? It's because no one from the Han family will come to the Silver Blizzard City. In fact, I believe that no one will pass through this place within a month or two. Therefore, this old man is very relieved. Ha ha ha, I've kept these words in my heart for so many years. But, this old man is finally saying them in broad daylight. How delightful. This old man firmly believes that one day, I will be able to say these words to the people of the world in a dignified manner. And, I'll be able to convince the world. Xiao Xingyun roared the last sentence. Then, he looked into the void with an exceptionally sentimental expression. His voice was low and melancholic as he said, my second brother and I have been planning this for our entire lives. Now, the dawn of hope is right in front of us. But, he won't be able to see it. He'll never be able to see it. My second brother, he won't be able to see it, he roared again. His body slightly trembled, and tears appeared in his eyes. The Xiao family had been together since childhood. And, they had never been separated in their entire lives. But, one of their wings had suddenly been broken at the time when both of them were old. The pain in Xiao Xingyun's heart was difficult to describe. Therefore, he hated the Han family even more. Especially these people in front of him. Xiao Buyu only has himself to blame. And, Xiao Han has brought about his own destruction. What does this have to do with the Silver Blizzard City and us? Don't tell me that you want to put the blame on us. Ridiculous. Han Fei Yun's old hands secretly pressed on the hilt of his sword. His eyes were sharp as he said, Xiao Xingyun, you're traitors now. You're traitors of the Silver Blizzard City. He unsheathed his sword with a shwa sound. The sword flashed, and a piece of cloth fell to the ground. Chapter 453. Ha ha ha, good. 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 Cut off all ties, cut off all ties. Xiao Xingyun laughed 3 times. His eyes flickered, and the murderous look in his eyes became more and more intense. He suddenly waved his hand and shouted, Men! Kill these traitors as soon as possible. Don't leave them alive. Kill them without mercy. The white-robed swordsman behind him rushed forward with a loud bang. Han Fei Yun's body floated backwards after he had cut off his ties with Mu Shuatong. He then whispered, the situation is dangerous. I'm afraid that there's a traitor among the 7 swordsmen. The odds are against us. You must protect the little princess. Then, look for an opportunity to break out of the encirclement. The Silver Blizzard City is close at hand, but it's out of reach. So, you must turn around at full speed, and return to the Tianxiang City to look for Jun Wui and Jun Moxie. They're the only ones who can truly help us now. We'll try our best to hold them off for a while. Remember, this matter concerns the future of the little princess and the Silver Blizzard City. So, we mustn't fail. By the time he finished speaking, the silver-clothed swordsmen had already surrounded him. Each and every one of them had a gloomy expression on their faces. Their gazes were ferocious as they mercilessly drew their swords at the few elders whom they had met day and night. Xiao Xingyun whistled, and 5 white-bearded old men took the lead. Their swords split into 2 colors, and shot forward like a flood dragon. Shen Xian is a grade 2 snow swordsman. The 3rd elder, Han Fei Yun, blurted out in surprise. These were the 5 gifted experts of the Silver Blizzard City. These 5 people had suffered chi deviation at the same time due to an accident. However, the 5 of them were extremely tenacious, and they had actually taken a different path. With the help of a strange and evil Xian Qi, they had forcibly opened up a new meridian route to circulate the Xian Qi in their bodies. Their meridians had been blocked because of the cultivation deviation, but they had suddenly become unobstructed on the day of their success. Therefore, each of these 5 people had the strength of a grade 2 snow swordsman like Shen Xian. However, each of them had the strength of a grade 2 snow swordsman like Shen Xian. Furthermore, it had the strange ability of being cold and hot at the same time. However, 15 years ago, in order to make up for the flaws in their cultivation method, the 5 of them traveled to the distant desert. Since then, there had been no news of them. Everyone in the Silver City had thought that these 5 people had met with misfortune and were buried in the yellow sand. They hadn't expected that they would unexpectedly appear here. Why? The 3rd elder was shocked. He quickly jumped back, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. Why are you here? Didn't you die in the Gobi Desert 15 years ago? The 5 of them were expressionless, as if they didn't know who the person in front of them was. Their long swords formed a colorful sword net, and with a biting cold killing intent, they came crashing down. The 7 swords of the Silver City roared at the same time. Then, their swords interweaved to form a brilliant net of swords. He wanted to give the 3rd elder some time to make arrangements. The 5th elder's white beard fluttered in the wind. His long sword was like a dragon as it flew towards Xiao Xingyun, the elder brother whom he had always revered. Although the sword light was venomous, there were tears in his eyes. Xiao Xingyun's eyes were filled with a cruel and venomous look. He suddenly drew his sword, and the sword light rose sharply. A cold light radiated in all directions as he mercilessly attacked with all his strength. Xiao Xingyun had brought a large number of people with him this time. In fact, there were nearly 100 of them. Moreover, most of them were Earth Xian and Tian Xian senior swordsmen. There were also himself and the double-colored snow swordsmen, the 6 Shen Xian experts. It was clear that they wanted to kill the 3rd elder and his team. On the other hand, the 3rd elder had traveled a long distance in order to return to the Silver City as soon as possible. So, he and the 5th elder were the only 2 Shen Xian experts who could still put up a fight. The might of the 7 swords of the Silver City's sword formation was extremely impressive. In fact, it would have been able to resist the 5 swordsmen of the Shen Xian experts if they were to face them. However, the enemy's numbers were simply too many. In fact, they were drowned in a tide of people in the blink of an eye. Mu Shuetong held his long sword in one hand, and Han Yen Meng in the other. He was concentrating on dealing with the enemy's attacks. He was trying to find even the slightest gap. Everyone's lives weren't important at the moment. The safety of the Silver City was the most important. The Silver City would know the truth as long as he and Han Yen Meng could break out of this place. the Shao family's conspiracy couldn't succeed. Mu Shuatong also believed that he was the best candidate to escape with the little princess. The third elder would certainly be more confident in breaking out of the encirclement with the little princess. However, he wouldn't be able to stop the enemy's pursuit. Moreover, Shao Xingyun was bound to keep a close eye on the third elder. So, the third elder wouldn't be able to escape far even if he were to take advantage of the opportunity to break out of the encirclement. Therefore, the only option left was to sacrifice the strongest person in the team in order to buy as much time as possible. Then, he would be able to escape with the little princess. However, this wasn't the time for pleasantries. Therefore, Mu Shuatong immediately understood the meaning of the third elder's words. Han Yen Meng looked around at the people who were engaged in a life-and-death struggle. She was extremely sad in her heart. Every face here was familiar to her. Everyone here had treated her like a precious jewel. They had hugged and kissed her when she was a child. In fact, everyone here could be said to be her family. However, one of her two groups of family members had betrayed her. Moreover, they were engaged in a life-and-death struggle with the people who were protecting her. We were born of the same root. So, why are we so anxious to kill each other? Tears welled up in Han Yen Meng's eyes. She didn't know why this was happening in her pure heart. She only knew that the sky had changed. The third elder steeled his heart as he slowly retreated. The fifth elder and the 7 swords of the Silver City had gradually taken on the majority of the battle. However, the third elder's entire body suddenly emitted a fierce sword light. It seemed as if the sun had suddenly risen to the sky in the middle of a pitch-black night. 10,000 sword lights poured down like the Milky Way. The third elder had used his full strength in this sword attack. It was a fight of life and death. Mu Shuatong didn't utter a word. He rushed forward with Han Yen Meng. He rushed towards the direction that the third elder's sword light had pointed towards. Shao Xingyun felt that something was amiss. He roared, "Stop them! Capture that little slut!" Then, he turned to the other side and roared, "Attack!" As soon as these words were spoken, the situation on the battlefield suddenly changed. The last of the 7 swords of the Silver City suddenly changed the direction of his swordlight, and stabbed at his subordinates. They had lived together for many years. A few blood-curdling screams resounded. 3 of the 7 swords of the Silver City stared in disbelief. Blood spurted out of their chests as they slowly turned around to look at their youngest brother. Their eyes were filled with grief, anger, and confusion. That man's eyes exposed a look of guilt. His expression was complicated as he whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm a member of the Shao family." The 3 of them revealed a look of understanding in their eyes. Then, they calmly fell to the ground. There wasn't the slightest trace of resentment on their faces even at the moment of their death. Perhaps, they still regarded him as their own brother, even in death. The last expression in the eyes of the 3 was one of boundless pain. "Ah!" The third elder roared as he saw the situation change. He had already guessed that such an unforeseen event would happen. But, he still couldn't bear it. He crazily spouted blood from his mouth. His white beard was covered with speckles of blood. Suddenly, he swung his sword to the left and to the right. 2 perfectly round sword lights suddenly shot out. Several people cried out in alarm as their blood splashed everywhere. 2 of them couldn't dodge in time, and were chopped in half at the waist. The third elder, Han Fei Yun, roared. His body was wrapped in swordlight as he rushed out like a whirlwind with Mu Shuatong and Han Yen Meng in tow. Then, Han Fei Yun turned around as soon as he got out of the encirclement, and shielded Mu Shuatong and Han Yen Meng behind him. It seemed as if he could hold off 10,000 enemies by himself. Then, he roared, "Who dares to come up? Fight me to the death." Mu Shuatong dragged Han Yen Meng behind him. He didn't even turn his head as he fled into the distance like a wisp of smoke. Han Yen Meng's delicate and anxious voice was heard from afar, "Third grandfather, but the third elder couldn't hear her at this moment. His eyes were firmly fixed on the youngest of the 7 swords of the Silver City. His eyes were filled with hatred, as if he wanted to eat him alive. This villain who had killed his own brother would have been sliced into pieces 10,000 times by now if looks could hurt people. Why? The third elder's body trembled. His eyes were sparkling with tears. But he still had the innocence of a child. He slowly stepped forward. Why? Wan Qingguang. Why? Why did you do this? The old city lord brought you back to the Silver City out of kindness when you fainted under the snow-capped mountain. He nurtured you with great care, and even made you one of the 7 swords. So, why did you do this? This 100-year-old old man had been stimulated to the point of shedding tears in the past few days. It could be seen how severe these successive blows had been. The third elder couldn't bear it even though he had cultivated his mind for nearly 100 years. Wan Qingguang's face turned pale under the third elder's contemptuous gaze. He couldn't help but take a step back. His eyes were filled with guilt as he muttered, I didn't want to do this. Third brother, I'm actually a member of the Shao family. My name is Shao Jianguang. What happened back then was... Haha. Han Fei Yun, haven't you been wondering how I got this information? You should understand now, right? Haha, this is one of the most important hidden pawns of our Shao family. And, our Shao family doesn't only have one hidden pawn. Han Fei Yun, your Han family is done for. Quickly get out of the way. I'll leave your corpse intact on account of our past friendship. Ha ha ha. Shao Xingyun, do you think that's possible? The third elder had chosen the narrowest place in the valley. 1 man and 1 sword were coldly facing each other. It was obvious that he had made up his mind to die. Kill. Kill as quickly as possible. We must capture those 2 who escaped. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. Shao Xingyun waved his hand. His face was full of murderous intentions. The 3 remaining members of the 7 swords and the 5th elder were covered in blood. They fell from the sky and staggered to stand side by side with the 3rd elder. Their gazes were resolute and cold. They didn't look at that traitor anymore. He's not worth looking at. The crowd swarmed forward. The 3rd elder roared, stop them with all your might. Don't let them cross the line. The 4 of them agreed at the same time. Their gazes were resolute. They brandished their swords as bright as snow, and the sky was filled with bloody light. They were doomed to die today. But, they wouldn't sacrifice themselves lightly. They would fight for the little princess as long as they had a breath left in them. The more time they had, the more hope they had. For the future of the Silver City. For the future of the Silver City. Both sides clashed like a whirlwind. The blood slowly dyed the ground like plum blossoms. Then, it gradually gathered into a ball. Then, it slowly converged into a small stream. Chapter 454. Mu Shuatong was holding the Silver City's little princess, Han Yan Meng, with one hand. He had exhausted all his strength, and was running at full speed over the snowy ground. He didn't even dare to look back because he knew that his speed would inevitably slow down if he were to turn his head, even if it was only for a moment. In fact, there was a possibility that he would be overtaken even if it was only for the blink of an eye. Then, the sacrifice of the 3rd elder and the others would have been in vain. Therefore, he had been blindly running away in grief and indignation, with all his might. He could hear the sound of an explosion coming from behind him. It was as if the mountains were collapsing and the earth was splitting. It was the sound of a Xinxian expert using his full strength. In fact, he was using every ounce of his potential to attack the enemy with all his might. Mu Shuatong's cultivation was only at the Tianxian level. However, he was the son of a famous family. Moreover, there were many Shenxian experts in the Silver City. Therefore, he was able to understand the sound of such a sound. Then, the third elder's shrill laughter came from afar. Shao Xingyun, are you satisfied now? Ha ha ha. Shao Xingyun's furious voice echoed, you want to risk your life? Everyone, attack with all your strength. Chop him into pieces. Then, there was an unusually chaotic sound of weapons clashing. However, the sound was quite weak due to the distance. Then, a long and miserable howl resounded throughout the snowy peak. Then, the third elder's resolute voice echoed, come on, accompany me to hell. Ha ha ha. Boom. A violent explosion was heard, followed by a series of blood-curdling screams. Mu Shuetong's eyes were streaming with tears. He knew that, the third elder, Han Fei Yun, had sacrificed himself to the point that his body was smashed to pieces. The third elder didn't even leave his corpse intact in order to delay for as long as possible. Mu Shuetong flew up with Han Yanmeng in tow. Whooshing sounds were heard as they passed through the dense pine forest. They left faint footprints in 3 directions. Then, he took a deep breath, and unleashed his full strength. He flew 80 feet away like a meteor. Then, he brought Han Yanmeng with him, and fell down a cliff. Then, he disappeared from sight. Setting up a diversion here was the best way to escape. Shao Xingyun arrived at the scene as light as a feather after a short while. He carefully looked all around, and waved his hand furiously, search carefully. There were footprints in the snow. They couldn't have gone far. Split into 3 groups and search carefully. Now that only the thief is left, he won't be a problem. Search every inch of this land. They had to find them even if they had to dig 3 feet into the ground. If you find him, don't leave him alive. Kill him without mercy. Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao had a good sleep. They slept all the way until the next day. It felt like it had been a long time since he had such a satisfying sleep. Ku Er was guarding the door for him. This little girl was very responsible. No one was allowed to go in and disturb the young master's sleep. Then, a servant came to report that a man named Bailey Luo Yun had come to see him after lunchtime. Jun Moxie stretched his waist, and sat up. He then muttered, he arrived earlier than I had expected. He arrived 3 days earlier. He then stood up and said, I'll personally go out and see that brat. Bailey Luo Yun was a young genius of the Bailey clan. His entire body was covered with dust, and his face was weary. However, his eyes were filled with an unusual firmness and sharpness. Moreover, his body also had a bit more ruthless temperament than before. Bailey Luo Yun was just standing there. However, his entire body was emitting a cold and imposing aura. This made the guards of the Jun residence feel very uncomfortable. So, they couldn't help but raise their guard to the maximum. It must be known that the Jun family was a military family. So, even the guards of the Jun residence had been to the battlefield. They had used swords and spears. So, one could well imagine the sharpness of his aura if he could shake these experienced warriors. A trace of surprise flashed in Bailey Luo Yun's eyes when he saw that Jun Moxie had personally come to see him. He then cupped his fists and said, Young master. I've returned. It's good that you've returned. Jun Moxie smiled faintly, how did the matter go? I've killed all 50 of them. Not a single one of them was left behind. Moreover, there's no trace of them apart from the few lines of the poem. Bailey Luo Yun replied faintly. However, his tone was filled with incomparable self-confidence and arrogance. Well done. You've worked hard. Jun Moxie patted his shoulder, I've arranged a place for you. So, you should take a good rest. We'll talk about the other matters later. Jun Moxie frowned. Bailey Luo Yun's position hadn't been arranged properly. I could clearly feel his arrogance a moment ago. This is unacceptable. It's not a good thing for an assassin to be so arrogant. Young master, I don't know, my father and the others. Bailey Luo Yun asked in a somewhat hesitant manner. I said that we'll talk about the other matters later. Didn't you hear me? Jun Moxie's complexion sank. He looked at Bailey Luo Yun with a profound look in his eyes. His gaze was full of authority. Bailey Luo Yun suddenly understood. His complexion turned green as he bowed respectfully. Luo Yun obeys. Jun Moxie smiled. This is your filial piety. I'll only do it this once. There won't be a next time. Bailey Luo Yun replied respectfully, thank you for your magnanimity, young master. The emperor doesn't need hungry soldiers. So, I'll fulfill my promise to you. They've arrived at the Tianxiang city 3 days ago. I've already arranged a place for your father to stay. Forget it. You'll feel uneasy if you don't see your father. So, I'll take you there. Come with me. Jun Moxie stepped out of the door, and led him to the back. Bailey Luo Yun was a smart man. So, he only needed to remind him once. He didn't need to say anything. Nor did he need to explain anything. Everyone was well aware of the situation. There was a large house not far from the Jun family's residence. Luo Yun Mansion. The 3 glittering words hung high in the sky. Under the sunlight, they looked resplendent and magnificent. Several guards were standing at the entrance. They were full of vigor, and had sturdy statures. Bailey Luo Yun's father was comfortably sitting on a recliner in front of the courtyard. He was dressed in a luxurious Xian beast skin robe. There was a look of contentment and happiness on his face. Behind him, there was a pretty little maidservant who was diligently massaging his shoulders. In the courtyard, there were also a few maidservants who were diligently cleaning up. Bailey Luo Yun was pleasantly surprised to find that his father's complexion was much better than before. In fact, his complexion had become rosier. In fact, his entire body was glowing with a healthy luster. In fact, it seemed as if he had been reborn. In fact, it seemed as if he had become several years younger. Even the wrinkles on his face had lessened. This will be your home from now on. Bailey Luo Yun's home. Jun Moxie smiled and said in a soft voice. My home. Bailey Luo Yun was dumbfounded. Home. I used to have a home. But, that home of the Bailey family was filled with painful memories. It was a cage that I couldn't break free from. In fact, it didn't feel like a home at all. How could I have imagined that I would have a home here? A brand new home. A home that belongs to me and my father. Bailey Luo Yun suddenly felt a warm feeling as he looked at the flowers and trees in the courtyard. He felt warm even though it was already November. His ice-cold heart had also become warm. Jun Moxie smiled faintly. He then quietly withdrew. He left Bailey Luo Yun to enjoy the taste of home by himself. Jun Moxie understood this feeling. Therefore, he didn't want to disturb him. Bailey Luo Yun rushed out after a while. He had an excited look on his face. He saw Jun Moxie, and suddenly straightened his body. Then, he solemnly knelt down with a solemn look on his face. Jun Moxie supported Bailey Luo Yun with his left hand. Then, he raised his hand, and propped him up. Bailey Luo Yun was about to kneel down. Jun Moxie then said in a gentle voice, what are you doing? I've arranged everything for you since you followed me. I've made sure that you don't have to worry about anything. This is a matter of course. You don't need to do this. I want an arm to work for me, not a worm that kowtows to me. Then, he forcibly pulled Bailey Luo Yun up. Perhaps young master feels that it's only right and proper. But, it's a great favor for me. Bailey Luo Yun said in a serious manner. He looked at Jun Moxie with reverence in his eyes for the first time. However, there was also a bit of respect in his eyes. That's not necessary. Luo Yun, you're a sensible man. So, I don't need to say much. You understand. Let's get straight to the point. I'll be frank with you. I won't do this for you if you, Bailey Luo Yun, are useless. As for you, you have to recognize that your value is not as simple as a house. We must move unhindered across the world together. What I need is your ability. Remember what I've said before. This is the only time. There won't be a next time. Jun Moxie said slowly. His words were spoken slowly and plainly. In fact, they were very unpleasant to hear. However, Bailey Luo Yun knew that this was the truth. And, it was the most pleasant to hear. Everyone hoped that good fortune would fall on their heads. But, they never thought that. You don't have anything. So, why would so many good things happen to you? You don't have any ability. You can't do anything. So, why would you expect others to do anything for you? This is the same reason why someone would give a gift to an official. But, they wouldn't give a gift to an old farmer. That's because an official can get things done. But, an old farmer can't. Ah, of course, it's a different matter if you fancy the old farmer's beautiful daughter, but, understanding is one thing. Being able to say it is another thing. Being able to say it is another thing. And, being able to do it is another thing. Which rich and powerful family doesn't have 100 or more talented people? Even the wealthiest person in the world would have died if everyone was given a courtyard and a maid. And, they would have been so generous. The Jun family has so many talented experts. So, why are they taking care of me? Could it be that I, Bailey Luo Yun, am more useful than those old foxes? Or even those Earth Xian experts like Tian Xian? Even Bailey Luo Yun wasn't confident in this aspect. Therefore, Bailey Luo Yun nodded heavily. He didn't show his emotions on his face. Instead, he resolutely said, I understand. Ah, not bad. It seems that your Xian Qi has advanced by another level. You were at the peak of Yu Xian the last time I saw you. But, you're at the peak of the primary Earth Xian level now, right? You're only one step away from advancing to the intermediate Earth Xian level. This rate of progress is godly. Jun Moxie sized him up. Then, he asked in a somewhat astonished manner. This is all thanks to the young master's divine pill. I broke through the bottleneck of Yu Xian level in an instant after I ate it. And, I ascended to the Earth Xian level. Then, I circulated my Xian Qi to absorb the power of the pill. Even I couldn't believe it when I finished absorbing it. It was only the power of one pill. But, it was able to make me advance by so much. It's truly a divine pill. Bailey Luo Yun seemed very excited as he talked about this matter. He recalled the time when his body had started to emit a hazy yellow light. His hands and feet had started to tremble in excitement. And, he couldn't help but blush. How could the young master's divine pill increase your strength by 10 years? It's a divine pill that can make a breakthrough. Jun Moxie opened his eyes wide. He then opened his mouth, but he was left speechless. What kind of person has such a life? Many people have taken the 10 years pill before. But, none of them have made such a terrifying advancement. But, this guy has advanced by taking a 10 years pill. Moreover, he's reached the next bottleneck. It seems that he'll reach the intermediate Earth Xian level very soon. This is too fast. Of course, this kind of astonishing progress was still far from being comparable to Jun Moxie's leap of 7 or 8 levels. But, Jun Moxie understood this in his heart. I've been able to leap more than 10 levels in one go because I have the Hongjun Pagoda. This is the ultimate cheating tool. Moreover, my body is constantly being transformed by the spirit Qi. But, Bailey Luo Yun doesn't have anything. He's only relying on his innate talent. But, this kind of innate talent is too abnormal. This kind of innate talent is worth investing in. The only bad thing about this kid is that he can't follow orders without any mistakes. But, these rules need to be established bit by bit. The canal will be formed when the time comes. This is the new task I'm giving you. You'll be in charge of these training exercises in the coming days. You'll develop your body in an all-round way. Jun Moxie handed over a few pieces of paper to Bailey Luo Yun. The paper was filled with drawings of the human body's postures and explanations. Each and every one of these postures was strange. In fact, they were beyond the limits of the human body. Bailey Luo Yun's eyes lit up as he looked at them. An ordinary person would have thought that these postures were unimaginable. They would have been impossible to achieve. However, Bailey Luo Yun was a martial arts genius. So, he possessed an extremely powerful comprehension ability. He could see that these postures contained boundless potential with a single glance. This was the best gift for Bailey Luo Yun since he was extremely eager to improve his strength. Bailey Luo Yun had killed many people along the way. So, he had gradually fallen in love with this kind of exhilarating feeling. However, he would only be able to enjoy this kind of exhilarating feeling for a long time if his strength was strengthened step by step. Therefore, Bailey Luo Yun didn't hesitate to accept the task. This is a list of names. You must remember the names of the people on it. You must go out and kill one person after every 3 days of training. A cruel glint flashed in Jun Moxie's eyes. It's up to you to decide who you want to kill. These people are all our enemies. But, there's no need to hurry. You can take your time to clean them up. You don't need to be in a hurry. Do you understand? Jun Moxie said slowly. Bailey Luo Yun nodded in a dignified manner. He then carefully placed the paper in his bosom. I hope that you'll be able to reach the peak of the Earth Xian realm in 3 months. Jun Moxie clasped his hands behind his back. He then turned around and walked away. Then, he left behind these words, I'll help you break through the Earth Xian realm at that time. You'll reach the peak of the Tian Xian primary level, or even higher. I hope that you won't disappoint me. Bailey Luo Yun's body trembled. His eyes emitted a blazing radiance. Jun Moxie heard the distant sound of Guan Qing Han's flute when he returned to the small courtyard. It seemed as if she was weeping and complaining. However, she still felt a heavy pressure. In fact, it seemed as if she couldn't bear such a heavy burden. Jun Moxie sighed and shook his head. Then, his gaze fell on the 2 crazed figures in the small courtyard. They were the 2 crippled youngsters who had bitten off their own fingers to write a letter of blood. These 2 youngsters had lost their tongues. And, one of them had lost an arm. Moreover, he had lost his right arm. Jun Moxie had given them a training method before he had left for the Southern Heaven region. However, he had doubled the amount of training that they could endure at their age. These 2 youngsters' bones weren't very good. So, they wouldn't necessarily have a future even if they practiced martial arts with all their heart and soul. Therefore, Jun Moxie wanted them to back off in the face of difficulties. However, what surprised Jun Moxie was that these 2 skinny youngsters could be blown away by a gust of wind. However, they had persevered. Moreover, they had automatically increased the amount of training by 4 times. If the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer teams were using their limits to train themselves, then these 2 youngsters were using their lives to train every day. Unless they died during the training, they would not fall behind in the task of training by 4 times. As long as they felt that they had recovered even a little bit of strength, they would immediately throw themselves back into training. 3 months were like 1 day. The wooden stakes that Jun Moxie had buried for them had been broken by them several times. Now, as Jun Moxie watched them train themselves, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Surprise. This was the surprise that belonged to the evil monarch. Da Xiao was also a human. Even though he had 2 lifetimes of experience, even though he had a cheating tool like the Hengjun Pagoda, he was still a human. He would also be surprised by things that exceeded his expectations. These 2 11 or 12-year-old youngsters were abnormally frail. However, when they fought, they were like 2 wolves fighting each other. 2 hungry wolves. There wasn't a trace of hesitation. There wasn't any mercy. Every punch and every kick was aimed at a fatal spot. Often, when one of them was kicked down, he would twitch on the ground for a long time. As for the other, he just watched from the side with a cold and emotionless gaze. Not to mention helping the other, it was already good enough if he didn't kick the other a few times. As for the injured one who fell to the ground, he would immediately jump up and fight again as soon as he recovered a little. Then, the two of them would be beaten black and blue every day. Even their throats, genitals, and chests were the targets of these two youngsters. If he didn't care about attacking these places, he would really end up killing people. They knew that the two of them should help each other, but now was not the time for them to help each other. Now was the time for life and death. If they couldn't endure the current training, then they would die in the hands of others in the future. If that was the case, then they might as well die in the hands of their own brothers now. The two's training was simply shocking. If these two children were to be compared with Bailey Luo Yun, other than the huge difference in aptitude, their killing intent was not much different. Especially their cruel nature, which was even more prominent. All three of them had the character of an assassin that Jun Moxie had identified. The three great assassins. Grandpa Jun had come to see them once before. When he returned to his study, the horror had yet to subside. In the words of Grandpa Jun, these two youngsters are simply not human. For an old general who had spent his entire life on the battlefield to be shocked to such an extent, it could be seen how ruthlessly these two youngsters had trained. Before Jun Moxie left, his small courtyard was still clean. Moreover, after experiencing the fierce pressure from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the ground had transformed into something harder than steel. However, when he returned this time, he found that the ground had become filled with countless potholes. Although the degree of change was not that great, it was still damaged. And this destruction was obviously caused by these two little fellows using their own bodies. This kind of hard ground that would not even leave a mark on with a hammer had been turned into such a state by these two youngsters in 3 months of training. From this, it could be seen how demanding they were on their training. Jun Moxie sighed. He clapped his hands and said, "The two of you, come here." When the two youngsters approached, Jun Moxie was surprised to find that these two youngsters had grown taller. Their muscles had also hardened. Their eyes were filled with indifference towards their own lives, causing Jun Moxie to feel even more surprised. The two of them knelt down at the same time and kowtowed. This was their usual etiquette when they saw the eldest young master. The eldest young master had warned them not to do so, but the two of them refused to change. The eldest young master also knew that the two of them were stubborn, so he simply let them be. "Get up, I want to see how much your bodies have been trained." Jun Mo Xia stretched out his hand, and used his spiritual sense to explore the meridians of the two men. He sighed softly. It was true that these two youngsters had trained very hard. No one could deny that their body's strength and coordination had greatly improved during this period of time. However, the innate limitations of these two youngsters were still there. Their aptitudes and Bailey Luo Yun's were two extremes. The difference was like heaven and earth, like the difference between cloud and mud. Jun Moxie felt that it was necessary for him to refine the medicine again. Da Xiao took out 2 10-years pills from his bosom and said, "Take them. Then, practice according to the Xian Qi circulation." With their aptitudes and the foundation that they had built up in 3 months, they would suffer a great deal of pain if they used the 10-years pills rashly. In fact, they would suffer 10 times more pain than an ordinary person would. However, after Jun Moxie had seen their training, he knew that these two youngsters were born to be ruthless. Others might not be able to endure it, but these two youngsters were definitely not a problem. Sure enough, after the two of them took the pills, there was a reaction in a very short period of time. They had only started cultivating their Xian Qi for 3 months and their Xian Qi was only at the 2nd or 3rd level. At best, they were at the same level as when Da Xiao had just crossed over to this world. However, This 10 years pill was a heaven-defying pill that even a silver Xian expert would suffer for a long time. However, if they relied on their willpower to endure it, their meridians would expand to an exaggerated extent. The more they endured, the more they would receive. Just like an expert like Shen Xian, it did not matter if he ate the 10 years pill or not. There would not be much of a reaction and he would be able to absorb 10 years of Xian Qi. However, that was only 10 years of pure Xian Qi. However, with the weak meridians of these two youngsters, if they were able to endure it, it would be tantamount to having an exceptionally valiant start. Even if their aptitudes were poor, it could still be made up for. Under the watchful eyes of June Moxie, the muscles of the two youngsters swelled up in pain. Their teeth were clenched so hard that they made grinding noises, but the two of them were still able to endure it without making a single groan. They could only endure it in silence, fighting against this kind of immense pain that even adults in their 20s would find hard to endure. Sweat poured down like rain. June Moxie looked at their frail bodies. When he saw their trembling broken arms, June Moxie suddenly thought of a blade technique, left-hand blade. Single-arm blade technique. Each blade was swift and fierce, and each strike was fatal. This blade technique came from a martial arts senior in his previous life. That senior was famous for his blade techniques and his strength could be said to be unparalleled in the world. Unfortunately, he was ambushed by his enemies and his right hand was chopped off. However, they deliberately did not kill him because he had lost his right hand. His exquisite blade technique was equivalent to crippling himself and it would be difficult for him to fight again. His enemies intended to turn him into a cripple and bring shame to the world. However, that senior was not discouraged. After pondering over the painful experience, with supreme perseverance, he spent 10 years to create a set of extremely exquisite left-handed saber techniques. After he mastered the blade technique, he returned to the world and killed his enemies with every blade. In the past, when he was at his peak, he was not a match for his enemies. However, when he used this single-arm blade technique, his enemies did not even have the ability to fight back. From this, one could see how domineering this blade technique was. However, the process of practicing this blade technique was extremely dangerous. Each move was reversed and unimaginable. If one was not careful, they could cut themselves at any time. This was because every slash would be made from the most unpredictable angle. While the enemy could not guard against it, the process of practicing would also increase the difficulty of one's own cultivation. But now, this single-arm blade technique was undoubtedly the only hope of this disabled youngster. As for the other one who was able-bodied, June Moxie also planned to be creative and teach him a strange sword technique. In this way, once the two of them combined their blade and sword techniques, they would definitely be able to display a terrifying power. The pain of the two little fellows lasted for a full hour. In the end, the two of them only twitched on the ground. They did not even sweat. They clenched their teeth so hard that blood flowed out from the roots of their teeth. Every blood vessel in their body was clearly bulging on the surface of their skin. In the end, when the pain finally subsided, the two of them were still clenching their teeth so hard that their muscles were spasming to the point that they could not open their mouths. June Moxie's huge and pure spiritual energy surged into them and helped them relax. Only then did the two finally open their mouths and look at each other. Their eyes were bloodshot from the pain, but their eyes were still filled with unwillingness to accept each other's strength. This is a blade technique. June Moxie casually grabbed a single blade and held it in his left hand. He swung it in the air and said, "Watch carefully." The child who only had his left arm left immediately had a fervent expression on his face. He focused his attention on every movement of June Moxie. His eyes were wide open and he did not even dare to blink, for fear that he would miss a single move. June Moxie practiced it slowly. He secretly circulated his Xian Qi under his feet and left shallow footprints on the hard ground. Then, he followed those footprints and practiced it 2 more times. He asked, "Do you understand now?" The one-armed child nodded. Their aptitude was really limited. Naturally, he did not understand the blade technique that he had only performed once. He did not even remember many of the moves. However, he understood Jun Moxie's intention very well. He wanted him to practice his blade technique by stepping on the footprints on the ground. After a while, Da Xiao taught another set of sword technique to the other child and instructed them to practice it well. At this moment, a guard suddenly came to report, the Dugu family has sent an invitation. They invite third young master to attend a banquet at the Dugu family today. Jun Moxie was stunned. What? Attend a banquet? What kind of show is this? I have been too busy these days because I have been busy with the gathering. I was drunk the day before yesterday and didn't have time to write. I actually stopped updating. Luckily, I made up for the minimum update yesterday and today. Although I didn't have full attendance, I still felt quite comforted. After all, after I stopped updating, I made up for 5,600 on the second day and 1,500 on the third day. I feel good about myself. For me, who is away from home, to be able to write these words in the midst of the gathering every day, I have to say something narcissistic, I am really awesome. Chapter 455. My brothers are burning with impatience. I've returned home today, so I've exploded today. I want to make up for the losses of the past few days, wahaha. Everyone can cast your monthly votes without worry. Tonight, before midnight, 4:00. Could it be that the Dugu family is so anxious to find me in order to discuss my marriage with Dugu Xiaoyi? This was the only possibility that Jun Moxie could think of. How would I face this marriage if it's really for this reason? The words on the invitation card were very concise and to the point. There was only one sentence in total, the Jun family's Mo-sia is invited to the Dugu residence for a meeting. The signature was unexpectedly, Dugu Zongheng awaits quietly. The handwriting was very rough, and almost ugly. But the strokes of the writing were full of hostility, bold and uninhibited. It was written by Dugu Zongheng himself. This was an unusually simple invitation card, but it showed the importance and anger of the Dugu family towards this meeting. Old man Dugu Zongheng had personally signed his name. This had clearly explained this point. But the wording was short, and it went straight to the heart of the matter. It was obvious that the Dugu family was extremely reluctant and helpless towards this meeting. Da Xiao secretly thought, could it be that the Dugu family wants to establish the little girl's status in addition to discussing the marriage between me and the little girl? After all, the little girl had returned home in public with a big belly. This wasn't a joke, but anyone who was observant would be able to see through the strangeness of this matter. How could she have such a big belly when she was only 2 or 3 months old? But no matter what the truth was, the little girl's reputation and integrity were certainly ruined. And this was something that Jun Moxie was quite touched by. The Jun family and the Dugu family were well matched in terms of social status. In fact, they were a perfect match for each other. However, the Dugu family would never allow their only granddaughter to become someone else's concubine. Even if they were well aware that the little girl was still a virgin, and that the young Master Jun's only woman was Guan Qinghan, they wouldn't care about this. Establishing the little girl's status as the first wife was very important. To put it bluntly, although Guan Qinghan had saved Da Xiao with her chastity, she was still Da Xiao's sister-in-law. Even if Da Xiao were to marry her, Guan Qinghan's delicate status would not allow her to become Jun Moxie's first wife. The little girl had always been on good terms with Guan Qinghan. If the little girl became the first wife, and Guan Qinghan became the concubine, it would be a good thing for everyone. Jun Moxie frowned. This should be the reason why the Dugu family is so anxious to find me, right? But no matter what, Dugu Zongheng seems to be looking for the wrong person. He should be looking for Jun Zhantian, not Jun Moxie. After all, Jun Zhantian is the head of the Jun family. Especially when it comes to the marriage of a descendant, Grandpa Jun should be the one to personally take care of it. Moreover, Jun Moxie is not someone that Duga Zongheng can face directly. His level is not high enough. Even if Da Xiao is in the limelight and has a rampant battle record, his level is still not high enough. This has nothing to do with one's strength. This is the level of worldly wisdom. Da Xiao may be a person of 2 lives, but he is still a young boy when it comes to worldly wisdom. He is not an expert in this kind of life event. Jun Moxie held the invitation card, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. When Jun Zhantian found out about this, he curled his lips and said disdainfully, "Little grandson, what's so strange about this? It's probably because that old man Duga Zongheng was roared at by his family's tigress. That's why he has no choice but to do this. I reckon that his family's tigress wants to see you in person. And, that old man Duga Zongheng doesn't dare to refuse you. So, he invites you, but you're unwilling. That's it. I've always seen you as daring as the heavens. But, how come you're so timid today? Well, get out of here. Don't disturb this old man's cultivation." It must be said that Grandpa Jun and Duga Zongheng had known each other for a lifetime. So, they had a thorough understanding of each other. It only took him a moment to deduce the truth of this matter. This speculation was not only close to the truth, it was completely consistent with the truth. The old man's last sentence mercilessly drove out his paranoid grandson. He then continued to meditate on the Great Way. It was rare to have such an opportunity to make a breakthrough. How could he not stabilize his realm in the shortest time possible? Jun Moxie smiled bitterly. Suddenly, he noticed a thick stack of papers on Grandpa Jun's desk. They were all folded and unfolded. It was obvious that these were all secret reports sent by eagles. The topmost one read, "The county magistrate of Qingshui County of the Western Capital was killed in his home. It is suspected that he was killed by the assassin, Lu Yun. The killer only left behind a poem, 'Good and evil will always be rewarded, justice cannot be allowed to fall. If you want to find the killer, ask Lu Yun.'" Jun Zhantian's reply was, "Quickly investigate." The next piece of information was the same. Jun Moxie counted and found that there were exactly 50 of them. Not one more, not one less. It was exactly the information on the 50 people that Bailey Luo Yun had killed. Jun Mo Xia couldn't help but sigh. Such an efficient intelligence system was so outstanding that it left one speechless. Bailey Luo Yun had only just arrived in Tianxiang, but everything he had done had already been gathered here. Moreover, it seemed like Grandpa Jun had already read through it. This meant that this intelligence had arrived even earlier than Bailey Luo Yun. It was a pity that although these intelligence agencies were under the direct control of the Jun family, their true master was the Tianxiang Empire and not the Jun family's own power. If there was a day when the relationship between the Jun family and the Tianxiang Empire was broken, these intelligence agencies would not be of any use. Jun Mo Xia frowned. He put the note back in its original place, and slowly walked out. As soon as he came out, he saw the guards at the gate rushing over. Behind them was a grotesquely shaped big fatty. Jun Moxie was shocked. He could barely recognize that this person was Tang Yuan. It had only been 3 months, and this brother had actually put on weight again. Moreover, it wasn't just a little bit, he had put on a lot of weight. Tang Yuan had originally been a circle. But now, he had turned into a triangle. His huge head was impressively pointed at the top of his head. Then, it spread down to both sides. Third young master. Tang Yuan became excited as soon as he saw Jun Moxie. He excitedly threw himself at him, gasping for breath as he tried to give him a bear hug. "Stop!" Jun Moxie was startled. "What happened to you? How did you gain so much weight?" He looked him up and down. Then, he frowned. "I could clearly see your calves before. But now, I can't even see your feet, ahem, don't mention it." Tang Yuan looked like he couldn't bear to look back. Brother, it's been tough these days. I've been forced to lose weight. What? Forced to lose weight? June Moxie finally cried out in surprise. Forced to lose weight actually reduced you from 300 pounds to 400 pounds? Wrong. Tang Yuan sternly pointed out June Moxie's mistake. If it was 400 pounds, perhaps I wouldn't be so depressed. This time, it was from 360 pounds. Now, it's 524 pounds. Fuck. June Moxie's mouth was agape. After a long time, he cried out, from 360 pounds to 524 pounds in 3 months, a full 160 pounds. Damn it, even if I fed hormones to pigs, they wouldn't be able to gain so much weight in 3 months. Feed pigs? Tang Yuan said unhappily. I have a special reason for this. What special reason? Could it be? June Moxie blinked. It had to be said that the word fat couldn't be used to describe Fatty Tang's current physique. It should be called terrifying. Sun Xiaomei has been forcing me to lose weight every day. Tang Yuan wanted to cry, but had no tears. Every morning, she would take a whip and wake me up to run. Every day, she would make me go out to exercise. Nobody in the family is on my side. Everyone is rushing to cooperate with that woman. Why is my life so bitter? Even in the aristocratic hall, there are people following and supervising me. I still don't understand. It's a very normal and effective way to lose weight. Why are you doing it? June Moxie was even more puzzled. Big brother, I do exercise. But, I get hungry afterward. I'm very hungry. Tang Yuan gritted his teeth and shouted, I get hungry every time I exercise. I used to eat 3 meals a day before I lost weight. I could eat 6 steamed buns per meal. But now, I have to eat 9 meals a day. I have to eat 10 steamed buns per meal, and that's not counting supper. June Moxie's body swayed, and he almost fell down. His face was full of black lines. What kind of person is this? The legendary envoy of the pure altar doesn't seem to be like this, right? Indeed, there's a reason to be fat. June Moxie nodded repeatedly. He had a look of amazement on his face. No wonder such a big miracle happened in these 3 short months. There's a reason for it. It's such a powerful reason. It would be strange if you don't get fat. That's right. Tang Yuan sighed and stroked his belly. I used to be able to carry my own belly. But, I can't carry it anymore. It seems that you still need to exercise further. June Moxie sighed. I still need to exercise. If I were to continue training, I would have broken through 600 gene. Tang Yuan unhappily rolled his eyes, but then became excited again. However, third young master, we have truly created a miracle. In these past 3 months, every single one of your pills has been auctioned for a sky-high price. Moreover, the current record is still being broken. Now, the few bottles of medicine that you left for me before you left have already turned into 900 million shining silver taels. Moreover, this money belongs to the aristocratic hall. The young prince's share isn't included. He's already given away his share. What? 900 million. 900 million. June Moxie was thoroughly shocked by this huge number. Da Xiao wasn't someone who hadn't seen money before. He had known that those pills would be very popular in this world. But, he hadn't expected that they would be so popular. I can refine 8 or 10 bottles of those pills at any time. So, I can make hundreds of millions of silver taels with just a flick of my finger. Isn't this world too crazy? Is it so exaggerated? Chapter 456. Isn't it just a pill? We have plenty of that stuff. June Moxie curled his lips in disdain. Sell it. The more popular it is, the better. I'm relieved to hear that. I've named this bone-tempering pill, reconstruct the bones of the entire body, reconstruct the muscles and meridians, and advance in an instant. It's the dream medicine of every profound practitioner. How about it? Isn't it cool? Now, our pills can no longer be described as expensive. Firstly, the effects of your pills are too fucking miraculous. Secondly, I, your brother, have also put in some effort. Under my painstaking efforts, the pills we produce have directly become the divine medicine that everyone yearns for. Fatty Tang smiled. His belly slapped the ground. He was overjoyed as he said, I've designed another line for this new pill. Listen to it. Are you still worried about your mediocre aptitude? Are you still worried that you can't compare to your peers no matter how hard you try? Are you still worried that you can't advance in an instant? Are you still worried that you can't become a strong practitioner? Come, please take the reconstruct the bones of the entire body, reconstruct the muscles and meridians, and advance in an instant. It's the dream medicine of every profound practitioner. Take it and you'll be a genius for the rest of your life. Come, come. What are you waiting for? Opportunity knocks, but it won't come again. The divine medicine will be auctioned for only 7 days. Don't let your life be filled with regrets. How about it? Not bad, right? Tang Yuan spoke in a proud manner. Then, he saw that Jun Mo's eyes were fixated on him. Fatty Tang, you're actually from Earth? Damn it. Why didn't you say so earlier? Jun Moxie suddenly grabbed his shoulder. His eyes were brimming with tears. What? Earth, what ball? Tang Yuan was startled. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You're the ball. Damn it. I have no choice. Who wants to be so fucking fat? I don't want to be fat either. So it's not. Jun Moxie sighed in disappointment. But you're too fucking talented. You can even think of such a creative advertising slogan. If you really go to Earth, you will definitely be a genius in the advertising industry. Advertising words. Yes, yes. Only by publicizing it will we be able to sell well. Tang Yuan suddenly understood the meaning of these 2 words. He couldn't help but look at Jun Moxie with admiration. Third young master, you are really too talented. Just a casual sentence contains the truth. This brother's admiration for you is like the surging waters of a great river. The moment I see you, my mood is like the surging waves of the sea in the midst of a gale. Fuck. Don't talk nonsense. How are you going to sell this thing? What do you think is a suitable base price? Jun Dashao waved his hand, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. I'm afraid that the efficacy of this pill is even greater than those elixirs from before. I'll auction 2 pills at once. The base price is 500,000 taels of silver. Tang Yuan revealed a black-hearted smile. He stretched out 5 fingers and said, my preliminary estimate is that it can be raised to at least 5 million taels of silver. You must know that the invitation for this auction is aimed at the aristocratic families with Xian skills. This is what they need the most. Jun Moxie was completely speechless. He suddenly felt that the person standing in front of him was an out-and-out black-hearted profiteer. 2 small pills, and this bastard actually wants to sell them for a sky-high price of 5 million taels of silver. Moreover, these 2 pills are not that important to me. One must know that in this world, 10 taels of silver is enough for a family of 3 to live comfortably for half a year. This period of time is really fucking satisfying. It's too satisfying. Tang Yuan's eyes were filled with the radiance of silver. I've always dreamt of this kind of life. I would wait comfortably, and then I would only care about counting the shining white taels of silver. Damn it, I didn't expect that I wouldn't be able to count the taels of silver. Instead, I would count the silver notes. I count the silver notes every day until my hand cramps. It's really satisfying. I count them by myself every night. And, I count them until the middle of the night. It's so refreshing. You are too great. June Moxie was utterly defeated. He had never thought that he would be left speechless by someone one day. Moreover, the aristocratic hall's income wouldn't even need to be exchanged for silver. Even if it were exchanged for 10 or even 100 taels of silver, it would still be enough for Fatty to lose weight in one night. After all, it would be enough to fill a room full of silver. And Tang Yuan's body would lose at least a few dozen kilograms of flesh if he didn't die from exhaustion after counting the taels of silver. This guy won't be able to eat it back no matter how much he eats. Huh. June Moxie had just thought of this when he suddenly thought of an excellent method to help Tang Yuan lose weight. And the corners of his mouth couldn't help but reveal an extremely evil smile. Tang Yuan was standing beside him when he suddenly shivered. It seems that someone is scheming against me. Forget it. How many people have been scheming against me these days? I have an expert like Song Shang to protect me. So, why would I care about other people's schemes? Fatty muttered twice. Ah, Fatty. Tell all the participating buyers that they must use silver or gold for this transaction. Don't accept silver notes. The auction will be delayed for 10 days. That way, everyone will have enough time to mobilize their funds. June Moxie suddenly thought of his own power of gold. It would be better to use other metals to temper the blood of yellow flame. Moreover, it would also help Fatty lose weight. What? Cash transaction. Gold. Tang Yuan fainted. Third young master, what do you want this for? That's a huge lump of gold. I have a great use for it. Do as I say. June Moxie said in a serious manner. Well, you must have your reasons. I'll go and take care of it. Fatty Tang was somewhat puzzled. But, he still readily agreed. But, third young master, you must help me with something first. What is it? It's that bitch, Sun Xiaomei. You don't know this, but I gave half a bottle to Sun Xiaomei. It's the kind of pill that you gave me for women to take, and I've already finished it. But, the problem appeared after I finished it. Tang Yuan heaved a long sigh. What's going on? Is there a side effect? June Moxie's interest was immediately piqued. Looking at Tang Yuan's expression, it didn't seem to be anything good. AI, that pill is indeed very effective. That bitch's figure has become slimmer. She can even be compared to Princess Raimu. But the problem now is that her face is even uglier. Tang Yuan wanted to cry, but he had no tears to shed. He said, Third young master, you don't know this. Sun Xiaomei can charm thousands of soldiers and horses just by looking at her back. She can then turn around and scare away millions of soldiers. This kind of comparison makes me fall apart. Especially when I think about how she's going to be my future wife. I'm falling apart even more. Face? How is it ugly? June Moxie was very puzzled. That minor yin pill was best at nourishing one's yin and nourishing one's face. How could it make one's face ugly? This was contrary to common sense. Little May, when she was young, she ate something unknown. Then, she suddenly became uglier and uglier, more and more out of shape. AI, in any case, it's the kind that's hard to explain. But ever since she took your pill, her body has changed more and more. It seems that even her bones have become slender. And more slender. I saw that it was effective, so I used my power for personal gain and left her half a bottle. Tang Yuan somewhat embarrassedly looked at June Moxie and scratched his head. After a few days, every time I look at her back, I find that she's really becoming more and more enchanting. It's really too beautiful. But her face is becoming uglier and uglier. There are lumps and abscesses, and there are also blisters and whatnot. Third young master, you don't know the pain in my heart. Such a good figure. It's really a pity. When June Moxie heard this, he also understood. It seemed that Sun Xiaomei's original sturdy figure was not completely formed innately. It should be that after she ate something, intentionally or unintentionally, it destroyed the yin and yang balance in her body. Therefore, everything developed somewhat in a masculine way. But now, the minor yin pill that he refined was the nemesis of this kind of thing. As a result, Fatty Tang accidentally forced the toxins out of Sun Xiaomei's body. But because he didn't use it properly, the toxins that accumulated over the years were automatically transferred and forced onto her face. As a result, her face was too horrible to look at. This created the current delicate situation of, looking at the back makes you want to commit a crime, looking at the side makes you want to retreat, and looking at the front makes you want to defend yourself. Don't worry, I'll go take a look later. I believe it's not a big deal. Later, I'll return you a beautiful wife. But Fatty, you have to be careful. What if Sun Xiaomei becomes beautiful and kicks you? Ah. Tang Yuan was shocked and said, if third young master didn't mention it, I really wouldn't have noticed it. If that's the case, with that woman's fierce personality, it's really possible. Should we not treat it? He thought about it and said in distress, but if we don't treat it, this face of hers is too unappealing. Sigh, let me think of a way for you. Jun Moxie comforted him and then rolled his eyes. But, Fatty, even blood brothers should settle accounts clearly. Tell me honestly, if nothing happens to your wife, do you plan to let this matter of you abusing your power for personal gain go? Tang Yuan rolled his eyes. You also know the rules of our hall. According to the highest market price of each pill, the price will be doubled and directly deducted from your shares. Jun Moxie said mercilessly, if this kind of situation happens again in the future, all your shares will be confiscated. Don't, third young master. That's silver, shining white silver. That silver is my life. You're plotting against your brother's life. We're brothers. Tang Yuan miserably screamed. It was as if someone had dug out his heart and liver. His heart and liver were in great pain. Snot and tears flowed down his face as he complained, you can't do this. You're too cruel, sob. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that after extorting the whole world in high spirits, it would be his turn to be extorted the moment Jun Moxie returned. Could this be karma? Then make your choice. Do you want the wife or the silver? Jun Moxie walked forward with his hands behind his back, ignoring Fatty's pleas. Chapter 457. Isn't that enough? Jun Moxie glared at him fiercely, don't think that I don't know that you're stuffing your own pockets. This is only a small lesson. A bottle of 100 pills is worth 1 million silver taels. You've used 50 of them. That's a whole bottle. You'll have to obediently spit out 100 million silver taels. Plop. Tang Yuan fell to the ground, foaming at the mouth, and twitching. Jun Moxie ignored him and said, I'll count to 3. If you don't get up by then, I'll double it. It doesn't matter how long you're unconscious as long as you have the money to pay. This time, Jun Moxie didn't even have time to count when Tang Yuan jumped up with incomparable agility. You don't need to go through the trouble of counting. I'll admit it, okay? Third young master, you're really ruthless. You want 100 million. I don't even have 300 million. Tang Yuan gritted his teeth and spoke with incomparable resentment. Then, he realized that he had made a slip of the tongue. What? 300 million. Damn it. Tang Yuan, you're really arrogant. You've eaten your fill. I'll fuck you. You embezzled 300 million for yourself. I'll give you 2 choices now. First, spit out the 300 million you've embezzled. Second, accompany me to the Dugu family tonight. Jun Moxie looked as if he wanted to eat someone alive. According to this guy's shares, he had 20%. The aristocratic hall had 900 million silver taels. So, Tang Yuan had 180 million silver taels. June Moxie hadn't expected that this fatty would be able to secretly amass a net worth of 300 million silver taels. In the entire Tianxiang Empire, there might not be many people with such a terrifying net worth. June Moxie wouldn't feel comfortable in his heart if he didn't exploit such a fat pig. Isn't it easy to choose? We're brothers. So, I'll go wherever you go. Even if it's a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, I won't shirk my duty. Isn't it just the Dugu family? Damn it. Huh. The Dugu family. Tang Yuan patted his chest passionately and hurriedly promised. Only after he finished speaking did he realize that he was talking about the Dugu family. He couldn't help but shiver and put on a bitter face. Third young master, it's not that I'm not loyal, but I really have something to do tonight that I must deal with. Really? I believe I can act at my own discretion. I also believe that you will accompany me. June Moxie chuckled. I really have something to do. I really can't delay it. When Fatty saw Dashao's smile, he thought that things had taken a turn for the better. Since you have something to do, I won't force you. 300 million. June Moxie extended 3 fingers. Elder brother, that matter of mine is a trivial matter. Hee, it's too insignificant. Accompanying you to the Dugu family is the proper business. So, how can I say no? I'll go, okay. Damn it. I'll sell my fat to the Dugu family. Don't tell me that they'll eat me. Tang Yuan's face was solemn and stirring as if he had died a martyr's death. That's more like it. I almost thought that you really have something to do. June Moxie clapped his hands and said with a smile, that being the case, then the 100 million. Tang Yuan's spirit was shaken. I'll even be exempted from this 100 million if I accompany June Moxie to the Dugu family. How good would that be? It would be worth it even if I were to be abused at the Dugu family. He looked at June Moxie with a look of expectation. Then, he heard June Dashao say. Let's talk about it tomorrow. I don't think that the Dugu family will be able to eat your fat. Tang Yuan fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva with a gulp sound. It was still early. So, June Moxie arranged for Tang Yuan to wait in his courtyard. Then, he told him to accompany Yi Guhan to chat. Then, he slipped away. That was because chatting with Yi Guhan was a very difficult task. That was because this guy always talked to himself. He didn't pay attention to anyone. And when he started talking excitedly, it was not enough even if there was no audience. He was going to get angry. He was now a cripple whose Xian Qi had been completely destroyed. If they were to talk about fighting, even Fatty might not be able to beat him. But could you really bear to make a move on a cripple? You can't have the heart to attack. So, you have to listen. Therefore, June Moxie had pushed Tang Yuan to the front. Fatty Tang had been very excited at first. After all, Yi Guhan was a passionate dream that had been circulating among the youths of the capital. Yi Guhan's persistence, Yi Guhan's deep affection, and Yi Guhan's legend. However, Tang Yuan had regretted it in less than 5 minutes. Yi Guhan was clearly immersed in his own world. He was narrating his story over and over again. In fact, it seemed as if he was speaking to himself from beginning to end. He didn't care whether or not anyone was listening to him. He was only responsible for speaking. However, Yi Guhan wouldn't be happy if Fatty left. So, he would glare at him and start cursing. Don't look at the fact that Fatty was a cripple. His curses were full of vigor. Tang Yuan wanted to cry but had no tears. He had paid 100 million taels of silver and promised third young master to accompany him to the Dugu family, the nightmare of everyone in the capital. In exchange, he was chatting with an emotional lunatic. There was no justice in the world. Finally, the whooshing sound of blades and swords attracted Yi Guhan's attention. Yi Guhan stood up and looked out the window. Then, he couldn't take his eyes off it. Then, he walked out quickly. Outside, Two children were practicing martial arts. One was practicing with a blade, the other with a sword. Their movements were immature and not practiced at all. It was obvious that they had just started learning martial arts. But, the one who really attracted Yi Guhan's attention was the child who was using a blade. That child was using a left-handed blade. Moreover, it was the purest one-armed blade technique. Because there were several blades that were sliced along the right arm. If the child had a right arm, it would have been chopped off by his blade. Yi Guhan was a martial arts expert. Naturally, he could tell at a glance that this set of saber techniques must have been created by a one-armed powerhouse. Otherwise, no one in the world would be able to create such a crippling blade technique. But, his right arm was also chopped off. He was also a cripple who could only move his left arm. Ever since he lost his right arm, Yi Guhan knew that he was finished. He had spent his life with a sword. Now that he lost his right arm, his exquisite swordsmanship would be crippled. Moreover, although he was lucky enough to survive that upheaval, the meridians in his body were congested and messed up. Tian Xian could no longer use his power. A series of blows caused Yi Guhan to gradually despair. But this time, Yi Guhan suddenly found a new hope. Others were able to create this blade technique with their left arm. They must have thought of it after they were injured. Why can't I create another blade technique that is suitable for my own left hand? In this way, if I can perfectly match the profound meaning of the unconventional sword technique, won't it be even more powerful? Yi Guhan just looked at the stubborn young man who was constantly practicing with the blade. He kept swinging the blade, over and over again. He was actually mesmerized by it. The young man who was practicing with the blade practiced again and again, but he seemed to be unable to grasp the main points. Just as he was feeling distressed, he heard someone say, "This move should be like this." Then, a hand took his blade and used the previous move. Compared to what he had practiced, it was so much more profound and proficient than what he had practiced. Moreover, this person was also using his left hand. Looking back, that person was Yi Guhan. Yi Guhan's face exuded an exceptionally fanatical radiance. He looked at the blade in his hand, and his eyes gradually turned red. He calmly placed the blade against his face after a long while. He said in a low voice, "Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that I'm still useful. I'm still not a complete waste." Then, he stood up, and stood perfectly straight. The pride and heroic spirit of killing thousands of miles away had once again returned to his body. When June Moxie arrived, Guan Qinghan was obviously a little flustered, and she was even more at a loss. "How have you been these days?" June Moxie smiled, and sat down on the chair beside her. "It's all right." Guan Qinghan smiled gently. Actually, there are some things that we always think of as excessively scary when we haven't faced them. But when it really comes to our own heads, and when we really confront it, we will find that it isn't necessarily very scary. In fact, there is no obstacle in this world that can't be overcome. Everything was as fake as **t. When you are no longer afraid, it will be even easier. June Moxie thought deeply, and said, "This time is no exception, understand?" "Yes, I really didn't expect this, and I never dared to have such an extravagant hope that this matter would pass in such a way." Guan Qinghan gently nodded, and said with a sad smile, "I originally thought that I would never be able to overcome this obstacle. At least, I wouldn't be able to overcome it. No, this matter isn't over yet." June Moxie smiled, "Because you haven't completely overcome your own obstacle. Right now, the third uncle is preparing for the grand ceremony of receiving his daughter. The third uncle wants to officially announce this matter to the world. Afterwards, because Guan Qinghan will be the daughter of the June family, and will no longer be the eldest granddaughter-in-law. If anyone dares to use this matter to cause trouble, then they will become the June family's mortal enemy. And, if they become the June family's mortal enemy, then they will have to accept the fate of being ruthlessly annihilated. Foster father is very considerate. Guan Qinghan was moved, and sighed. She looked at June Moxie with her bright eyes, and said, "But, you don't think things through properly, why do you say that?" June Moxie stared blankly. "I heard that Mei Gao Jia and Kong Ling Yang were killed. Did you do it?" Guan Qinghan looked at him in a somewhat reproachful manner. Those two old gentlemen were somewhat pedantic. But, they were very upright people. Moreover, they were brilliant in literature, and had a straightforward temperament. They had devoted their entire lives to the country. So, it's too much to kill such good people. He. You still don't understand. Sometimes, especially when good people were doing bad things, no matter what their original intentions were, the impact they caused would always be huge. The better the character of such rotten scholars, the greater the disaster they will cause. They will directly or indirectly hinder the progress of the entire human race. You won't understand what I'm talking about. June Moxie heaved a long sigh. He couldn't help but think of his beloved motherland. Chapter 458. The four great inventions of ancient China were brilliant, the 100 schools of thought flourished, the Qin and Han dynasties were tyrannical. The proud son of heaven, Genghis Khan, had almost conquered the entire world. But in the days that followed, the arrogance of the corrupt scholars and the narrow-minded thinking of the heavenly empire had led to the country's seclusion. The foreign enemies had advanced by leaps and bounds, but they only knew how to remain stagnant. They had allowed others to take their inventions and strengthen them, and then use them to attack them. They had finally suffered a great loss. This had also led to the current backwardness of the country, be it in terms of military or economy. They were struggling to catch up with others, and were not ahead of the world. All these causes and effects were due to the contributions of those learned scholars. Were these people bad people? No. Each of them was upright and self-restrained, and their temperaments were old-fashioned and arrogant. Their characters were unquestionable, and they were all good people. But they were the main culprits of the backwardness of the country. June Moxie would sigh every time he thought of that sad and helpless history. The disasters that good people brought to the world were far greater than the bad people. What kind of logic was this? If this was said, the vast majority of people would be flabbergasted and unable to believe it. But, this was the truth of a period of time. It was an indelible fact. Just like Mei Gao Jia and Kong Ling Yang, were they good people? Yes. This was something that no one could deny, not even the young master. But, because of the deeds of these two good people, because of the deeds that they thought would be passed down through the ages, millions of people in Tianxiang had suffered. What kind of standard should be used to evaluate the merits and demerits? June Moxie was somewhat disappointed and murmured, "Perhaps it is just a change in perspective." In fact, everyone's actions, in their own eyes, are 100% correct. Who could have thought it through so thoroughly? If one really wants to take care of everything, the only way is to do nothing. But, those who do nothing are only mediocre. So, we just need to abide by our hearts. June Moxie said seriously, "There is no need to think about these useless things. In this world, no one can interfere with our decisions. Not a single person. So don't worry, I won't make you sad, and I won't let them have an easy time either." Guan Qinghan sighed softly. What June Moxie said seemed to be right and wrong. It seemed to make sense, but it also seemed to be full of deviance. In short, he only understood half of it. Let's not talk about this first. What brings you here today? Guan Qinghan forced herself to ask. Nothing special. I heard you playing the flute just now, so I wanted to come and see you. However, after visiting Grandpa's study room, I was a little confused. June Moxie briefly explained the June family's intelligence network. Then, he added, "Our current situation is in opposition to the imperial family. If some of our guesses are true, I'm afraid that we will have to fight to the death." At that time, these people would definitely become a huge hidden danger. I'm having a headache. How can an intelligence network be so complicated? I see. Guan Qinghan frowned and thought for a while. Then, she said, if the Jun family and the imperial family stand on opposite sides, then how will the imperial family deal with these people who originally belonged to the Jun family? Will they trust these people? I don't think they will. They can only kill these people. They would rather kill the wrong people than let them off. And with the current emperor's degree of suspicion, this is even more so. That's right. Big sister's words are really like a wake-up call. Jun Moxie only felt his eyes light up. He laughed and said, I'm the one who is involved in the situation, so I can't see clearly. The imperial family will not allow them to exist. In fact, they are even more suspicious of me. I've finally figured it out. This is a lot easier. Ha, it's all thanks to my wife. Guan Qinghan suddenly blushed. She heard that the first half of this guy's sentence was very serious. She was happy for him. She didn't expect this guy to say the last sentence. Who's your wife? Don't talk nonsense. Guan Qinghan angrily rebuked. She suddenly felt so ashamed that she couldn't show her face. Her whole body felt a little hot. I'm my wife, okay? Ha ha ha. Jun Moxie laughed and walked away, leaving Guan Qinghan angrily stamping her feet. She finally calmed down after a long time. But, her face was still red. The sun was setting in the west. Jun Moxie carried the gift box. He was accompanied by Fatty Tang. He was accompanied by a few guards. They were escorted in the direction of the Dugu family. Tang Dashao was sitting in a soft bag. He was swaying as he followed Jun Moxie. Soft bags were meant for traveling in the summer. But, Tang Dashao was the only one in the entire continent who would sit in a soft bag in the middle of winter. Not to mention Tianxiang City, however, Tang Yuan couldn't do anything about it. His body was growing larger by the day, and the original sedan at home couldn't be used anymore. He hadn't even gotten a new one out yet. The last time he went out in the sedan, he suddenly fell out of the sedan with a plop before he could even walk half the distance. He fell to the ground in a daze. The sedan's chassis couldn't bear his terrifying weight, and couldn't bear the burden. Jun Moxie felt that it was urgent to help Fatty lose weight. If he continued to gain weight at this rate, then he would probably die of obesity. If he was fat before, then it was normal. But now, he was obese. In fact, he was in the middle or late stages of obesity. This was terrible. His life would be in danger at any moment. Unfortunately, there were no weight loss pills in the Hongjun Pagoda. This made Jun Moxie very helpless. Do I really have to use a knife to peel off all the fat from Fatty's body? The four bearers were already drenched in sweat by the time they reached the door of the Dugu family. They were gasping for breath. When Tang Dashao finally struggled to get down from the palanquin, the four bearers felt as if they were going to collapse at any moment. Carrying a palanquin for others was a way to earn money. But carrying a palanquin for this young master was simply asking for their lives. For a moment, the four bearers felt the urge to resign. Fatty's weight was growing at a terrifying rate. He was around 150 pounds just a few days ago. Although he was much heavier than the average person, the four bearers could still accept it. After all, Fatty's salary wasn't low. In fact, it was 3 times that of his peers. Although the 4 of them were tired, they still received envious looks from their peers wherever they went. But now, his weight had increased by almost half. The 4 bearers felt as if they were carrying a wild ox. It was much easier than carrying Tang Dashao. Because even a wild ox's weight couldn't compare to Tang Dashao's, his peers were no longer looking at him with envy. Instead, they were looking at him as if they were watching a show. As Jun Moxie had expected, the Dugu family had given him a show of strength the moment they arrived. There was no one at the door to welcome him. He handed over the invitation and waited for a long time. Then, a panting guard ran over and said, "The old master has invited young Master Jun in." Jun Moxie replied with an, "Oh. Why isn't anyone coming out to welcome me?" The guard couldn't help but roll his eyes. "I've already made it so clear, and you're still hoping for someone to come out to welcome you?" He could only say, "The old master has said that young master is not an outsider. There's no need for such elaborate formalities and fake greetings." Jun Moxie nodded and said, "Very well. Since we're all on the same side, I won't stand on ceremony. I also have some matters to attend to. Since we're all on the same side, the old master will surely understand. I'll visit another day." Da Xiao acted as if he'd heard the words "old master is not home." "Young master, please come another day." He turned around and left without any hesitation. "Damn it. If you hadn't taken the initiative to invite me, I would have come willingly. Now that I'm here, I'm treated like this. Do you think this young master is so easy to bully? In any case, you're the one who's anxious. I'm not. Who's afraid of who? If you piss me off, I'll marry your granddaughter and beat her up 8 times a day." The moment he turned around and left, the guards were immediately dumbfounded. It wasn't that they hadn't seen arrogant people before, but they'd never seen anyone who dared to be so arrogant in the Dugu family. Tang Yuan's bearers almost cried. "Little ancestor, can't you let us take a breather? It's a pity that we were carried so far." Jun Moxie had already walked a few steps away in the blink of an eye. It seemed that he didn't intend to return. Suddenly, a figure rushed out of the Dugu family's gate. "Jun Sun Xiao, please wait." It was Dugu Cheng. "Third young master, the whole family is waiting for you inside." "Why are you leaving? You've already come here. So, it won't make much of a difference even if you're in a hurry." Dugu Cheng had a dark expression on his face. But, he still put on an affectionate expression. He ran a few steps forward, and grabbed Jun Moxie's hand. Come back with me." Then, he turned his head and berated the guard. "Didn't I say that I'd come out to greet you? What do you mean you don't need to greet me? What kind of guard are you? How can you speak such nonsense? Do you think you can offend such an honorable guest as Jun Sun Xiao? You'll receive 20 lashes of the whip in a moment. That's a small punishment." The guard felt wronged. So, he shut his mouth, and lowered his head. However, Jun Moxie was about to burst into laughter. "This Dugu Cheng is very interesting. He sold himself out as soon as he opened his mouth. But, he still has the guts to put on an act. This skill is not small. It's no wonder that everyone says that the Dugu family is full of troublemakers. The rumors are true. First, he said that he'd come out to greet him. Then, he said that the guard had said that he didn't need to greet him. Isn't this making it clear that he was listening to the guard's words? He slapped his own mouth in such a manner. And, he even slapped his own mouth in such a manner. Jun Moxie had never seen such a thing. This servant doesn't understand propriety. Please don't blame him, third young master. Please come in." Dugu Cheng felt that he had spoken big words. So, he somewhat admired his quick wit. But, in the blink of an eye, he saw a mountain of flesh. There's also Tang Da Xiao. Tang Da Xiao is becoming more and more mighty. This foolish brother is very envious. Tang Yuan snorted. Then, he put on a fake smile and said, "It's rare that I, Tang Yuan, can make Da Xiao envious. It's a great honor." Dugu Cheng couldn't help but get angry when he heard Tang Yuan's sarcastic tone. Back then, Tang Yuan had failed to live up to expectations. In fact, he wasn't necessarily stronger than Mo Xie. In fact, he would have had no choice but to retreat if he had met the 7 wolf-like men of the Dugu family. But now, Fatty was worth more than 100 million. His self-confidence had also swelled. But, when he saw Duga Chung, he actually dared to make fun of him. With a face full of black lines, Duga Chung led the way. But, in his heart, he was thinking about how to make this fatty make a fool of himself today. And, this June Moxie is really too much of an eyesore. Look at his sloppy appearance. How can my sister like this person? He wants to be my brother-in-law with this kind of conduct. What a misfortune for our family. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.